All right, so Andy, you finally listened to the episode,
Well, I
or
listened to
at
like
least the beginning.
the beginning of it. Yeah.
So this was Josh's baby. This was when we immediately talked about doing Cabin. He had approached me and was like, "I got an idea. I don't want to tell you what we're doing, but this is what I kind of want to do." And he sent me a script to read for the cold open.
Okay.
So he put all of that together, and then I basically just sent him the audio portion of what I did, reading from his script. And he did the post-production stuff. He edited it together. He put all the sound effects in.
Damn, dude. Good job.
Played around with the intro music a little bit. So that was all Josh.
Very nice.
So what'd you think? Feel free to give him all the shit.
Go right ahead.
I kept thinking, I'm like, what am I hearing? What is that weird thing? And then when Brian started saying all that shit, I'm like, what the hell kind of work is he doing that's making weird, like, air noises? Like, that's weird. And then I'm like, oh, no. Josh is fucking with him. It took me a while, but I got it eventually.
So we did fool you at least in the beginning there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was like, what the
Okay.
fuck is that? I thought it was like something outside of my house. And I'm like, I don't see anything. This is weird.
I say that's
See,
the
I didn't know
desired
what
effect,
Brian
Josh.
was reacting to because I just thought it was part of the soundtrack.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that's spooky music. Yeah, I'm like, am I missing something? And then I think the last one before you left, it was like loud enough that I was like, oh, he's reacting to that. That's when it clicked for me.
Yeah.
'Cause I know before that I was paying attention because I was like, well, let's see if they're acting because there's no way they're good actors. So I'll hear it in their voices.
Oh, come on.
Personally, I think, Josh, you wrote an excellent script. Brian, you did good. The only thing you got to work on is your scream.
I love the
I-
scream.
See, I
to be
felt like
honest.
the scream to me sounded like more like Jazzy Jeff getting thrown out of the mansion in Bel Air than it did.
And I thought about that, but that makes me love it even more, if I'm being honest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bright Guy and Super Friends. This is our second time trying a live episode for all of you Super Friends on Twitch. Super Friends on Twitch. I'm your host, Brian Labick. Joining me for this episode is someone who brought the Major League butt kicking back in town, Andy Stoles.
What's up, podcast people?
Up next, we have someone who I would bet money watched this movie cross-legged on the floor with a giant bowl of cereal in full TMNT pajamas, Josh Zorch.
I was wondering if that was going to end with me or not. I'm totally fine that it did. And that's, it's close. I was probably cross-legged on the couch with popcorn, but I might just rewatch it this week that way.
Do it, yes. Take a picture,
Sounds
send
better
it
than the
to
way I
us.
watched it.
Next, we've got the only person I know that's hairier than Splinter, Mike Bradley.
It's oddly accurate. I'm not sure how you know that, but okay.
That's from my outside source. And finally, he's dirty, he's mean, and he's mightily unclean. Ian Leidick.
I like turtles.
Simple, sweet, to the point. I like it. All right, welcome everybody on Twitch to our second live recording. This is our latest in our series of Rewind Theater episodes. If you are new here, we're looking for an excuse to basically revisit some old comic book movies, hence the Rewind Theater was born. We came up with a pretty large and extensive list of movies to go through, so in order to help minimize the thought process needed to pick movies each week, we leave it up to the Wheel of Fate.
Wheel of Fate!
Wheel of Fate.
The Wheel, as always, will feature 4 one-off movies and 2 franchises as possible selections. When an option is taken off the board, we replace it with another one from our large list of movies that we compiled, I mentioned earlier. So feel free to stick around to the end of the episode. We will spin the wheel live on Twitch for anybody watching. Get to see it with us to see what gets picked. And we will go from there. For this episode, of Rewind Theater, we will be talking about 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the first franchise that has been chosen off the wheel, which means the Wheel of Fate stays the same from last week. Ninja Turtles will only leave the wheel when all of the movies in the franchise have been watched. So if it happens to hit the wheel again at the end of the episode, we'll be watching Secret of the Ooze. So, fingers crossed for that one.
Hopefully that's where it ends and it never touches the wheel again.
What are you talking about? Some good flicks in there.
I know. I kind of want to revisit some of the older, the newer ones too. I know Josh has been avoiding those. So those are another excuse for him to get through some of these other Ninja Turtles movies.
Very true. Guilty.
You got to
as
get
charged.
through 3 to get there.
True. Yeah. I sort of remember, but not well. So, yeah, I'm curious to see that one again too.
Yeah, because I think I only gave it maybe like 1 or 2 watches when I was younger, and I was like, "This is garbage." And then just
Yeah.
let it go.
That's the one even the kids don't rewatch.
Yeah.
We watch the other ones. All right, so we'll do it now. I'm gonna get the spoiler alert out of the way. If you've not seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990, and you don't want spoiled for a 30-year-old movie, pause this now. Come back to us after watching the film. Hopefully, I'd hope everybody by now has seen this movie, especially people listening to the show have seen this movie. But we're going to get into specifics. So if you don't want spoiled, pause us now. We will be here when you get back. Spoiler alert to follow.
Wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, spoiler! Something like that.
All right, so we are into spoiler territory. We can talk about whatever we want. So, a little bit of background for the movie. The movie was directed by Steve Barron. And looking from his IMDb page, it looks like this might be his first movie, as far as I can tell. His credits include a lot of music videos for the likes of a-ha, Bryan Adams, Kenny Loggins, ZZ Top, and David Bowie, among others.
Did he do Tango? Like
I didn't write down
iconic a-ha?
specifically which ones he's done, but I know they
you
occurred
vamp
more
and
than
go
once.
forward, I'll find out.
Okay, yeah, there was a lot of a-ha, there was a lot of Bryan Adams. I tried to pick the ones that I saw mentioned numerous times in the IMDb. But the Ninja Turtles happened, I guess, between, he had a whole bunch of music videos, he did Turtles, and then he did some more music videos before doing Coneheads from 1993.
Nice.
The movie was written by Bobby Herbeck and Todd W. Langen, both of which barely have any writing credits. Herbeck wrote 1 episode of Different Strokes, 1 episode of The Jeffersons, 3 episodes of Small Wonder, and then this movie, and that was it. Langen
Like
wrote
nothing
1
after?
episode of Pursuit of Happiness, this movie, 7 episodes of The Wonder Years, Secret of the Ooze, and then that was it.
Wow.
So these guys, both of them, seems like their writing careers died after writing Turtles movies.
I wonder why.
Can I take a moment to shout out some standouts in his music video?
Yeah,
Resume?
go for it.
Dude, Toto, Africa.
Yes,
Oh,
I did
nice.
see that too.
Thomas Dolby, You Blinded Me with Science. Billie Jean, Michael Jackson. Bryan Adams, Cuts Like a Knife. Come on.
I know. He's got some gems
Summer
in there.
of '69. Like this is amazing.
Granted, I don't know what any of those music videos look like, so I don't know if somewhere in there there's a resume for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
He did do Take on Me from a-ha.
There you go.
Which
That
is
is
That's an
a
accomplishment.
phenomenal video. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, in the history of like pop culture media, is still like cutting edge and iconic. I think.
Yeah. All right, starting with some questions here, and I'll ask anybody in chat too if you guys got any guesses. Any guesses what this film's budget was?
$1990.
This is 1990.
Yeah, 1990 is tough.
Comic book adaptation.
45 million.
All right, we got 45. Anybody else? Without Googling chat.
Yeah. 27.
27.
25.
Chris is saying 235K. That's very small.
That's how much Chasing Amy cost. I think.
Like Jim Henson got paid more than that.
We're not
I
talking
will
about
tell you it is over $1 million.
we're not talking about a modem. We're talking about cost.
Huh?
Uh,
That was better than every joke in this film.
my guess.
All right, so we got what? 45. What was the other ones?
25, 27.
My guess is 30.
I think I said 27. Yeah.
30. Chat, anything else?
Eight.
Nothing.
Did you get
Low
Amy's?
20s was closest. $13.5 million
Damn.
for this movie.
Wow.
It's a long
Which
time
still
ago.
seems low.
I don't know money then. I was 5 years old, so it's.
I mean, even just like for movie making standards, that seems low to me. But I guess the difference is that maybe they've done, with practical effects instead of CG or any type of like really hardcore special effects. Like maybe you can get away with that kind of money.
I think this looks tremendous for that budget. If this is what they produce based on that, that's incredible.
I'm wondering if this is a property that not many people like a film studio was like, oh, you want to make that Turtles movie? No one, we're not going to give you. This is before the boom of comic book movies. So I don't know if they looked at this as like a kids movie, so we're not going to give you budget for a kids movie or what.
That could
Well,
be.
I think part of it was they didn't like film out on like a street. They didn't have to close down any streets or anything,
True, yeah. Closed sets, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of that. That's
And like they
true.
reused a lot of sets.
True, yeah.
We only go a couple places.
Yeah. All right, so another one for you guys and chat also. Any guesses what the worldwide box office total for this movie was?
I want to say I remember it being like the highest grossing movie ever at the time.
Where was the bar set in 1990?
I'm gonna go 70.
213 million.
120.
200 even.
Ian?
70.
70 million?
Mm-hmm.
Chat, you guys got anything? Worldwide total?
Unless
We got somebody that's
70,000's
been-
closer.
I've got somebody that is 2 million off. So they're pretty damn close already.
Well, Andy and I are pretty close together, so unless it's like 68 or 72 million, it might be Ian.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go. So Andy was the closest. It was 202.
Ooh.
$202 million worldwide
Booyah.
on a $13.5 million budget.
A booyah.
Basically, by the way, in today's money, that doubles both. That would be like a $30 million budget today, making $400 million.
So a catastrophic failure.
Yeah, right. So someone had a good investment on that. Somebody got bonuses, hopefully.
Yeah. All right, so just kind of going around with everybody. Mike, I'll start with you. First time viewing or rewatch of this movie?
It's a rewatch.
Okay. Ian,
This is a rewatch. For the
Andy?
first time, I think, for this.
first time rewatch?
First time for this series, I think it's been a rewatch for me, I
Okay.
feel like.
All right.
Definitely a rewatch.
Josh, I know you rewatched this
Rewatch.
before.
Yeah.
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 I grew up with this movie, so this is definitely a rewatch for me as well. All right, so going through the current ratings for this movie. Rotten Tomatoes, critic rating has it at 40%.
What?
Audience at 81%.
Correct.
Metacritic has something, pretty much similar. Metascore 51, user score 7.8. So all the audiences love this movie. Critics are not the greatest with it. So, again, just sort of going around. Mike, I'll start with you again. Agree, disagree with these scores?
Agree with the audience.
Okay. Ian, any thoughts one way or the other?
So I 100% agree with the critics here.
Of course you would. Andy?
Man. I'm like right in between, I think.
So you give it like the 60-ish range, 60, 70?
Yeah, like I enjoy the movie, but now that I'm older, I'm like, ooh, there's some stuff in here. I'm like, wow, yeah.
Cringeworthy. Josh, where do you fall?
Firmly with the fans. This is one time that I will take that, like, this is a hill I will die on and say and any critic not going higher than 40% should not be in that job professionally anymore ever.
That is
Just-
absurd.
I
This
feel
is
like you
coming
and Ian
from
are
the
gonna fight on
man
this episode.
that gave Bloodshot the same score as Spawn.
So I will give you an advance warning, Ian. The typical exuberance and
We flipped jobs on this movie, I know.
pretty much like that the enthusiasm and just the outright energy that you have for everything so far. That's gonna be me, but like for real and not ironically.
Yeah, I think
How dare you.
it's weird. I think for me watching it again, like I sort of like Andy, like I remember loving this movie as a kid. Watching it again, it's like it's definitely there's certain bits of it that are very sort of cringeworthy for me. But at the same time, I feel like I'm going to end up rating it higher just for nostalgia purposes. Like just this movie being that big of a part of my childhood that I can't really dig into it and be like, this is crap. I don't know. That's so I'm leaning more towards user and audience scores. Yeah, for me.
Since
So we'll just
well,
I
real
guess
quick,
start going.
since you
yeah.
used that phrase twice already, like cringeworthy, is before we get into the whys on that, is it, do you think, how is that coming off? Like cultural things that we now look at differently, or just like, oh, this doesn't really hold up in certain ways?
I think it's more that for me. I think it's more just the stuff that's dated.
Okay.
Stuff that may, for whatever reason might have worked back then or worked when I was younger, but watching it now, it's just like, nope, that didn't hit me the same way it did before.
Well, I could think of like one very specific joke that does not work. Didn't work then. Should not be uttered now.
Fair enough.
Do you want to elaborate?
Or just
So
go ahead.
yeah, so when they're in the sewers with Casey, and he doesn't want to be down there, and one of the turtles says, "What are you, claustrophobic?" And Casey says, "You want to punch in the face? I've never even looked at another man." So one, it's a gay joke. Two, he apparently misheard claustrophobic as homophobic, but then took homophobic to mean that he was gay, instead of that he doesn't like gays. So the joke already doesn't work on the one level, and then two, you're doing a joke like making fun of someone's sexual outlook. It's at best cringeworthy now, and it should be maybe cut. Like this is the kind of thing they put warnings on now for Disney Plus stuff.
I mean, but
So do you want
Remember,
me,
the joke doesn't work
do you-
at the core level.
do you want me to
Isn't
defend
Casey supposed
that
to be a
now,
good-
or when it gets to be my turn? Because I wrote that
You
down.
can defend it now because that literally the joke doesn't make sense.
but Casey's just supposed to be
So-
a good-natured idiot, and that plays.
Right. So that is why I think the joke lands, and the fact that he is the one that is made to look like the fool is also why it is not necessarily a homophobic joke, because the person who potentially has that mindset is the one who is shown to like be the ignoramus. He doesn't know what these words mean. He mixes them up. So if you have that outlook, potentially there's a correlation between your general intellectual ignorance and that kind of outlook.
See, I would agree with you if all of these other jokes didn't also suck and seem like they weren't written by like an actual writer.
It seems like we're going to hit a couple of bumps along the way. So, Brian, where are we starting?
Well, yeah, I was going to start us with what we like, but I feel like we're already going down the dislike path, so maybe we'll start bad and come back around to the good
Okay.
stuff. So, like Ian or Josh, do you guys want to? Well, Ian's starting to already go down that path. I'll let you go with it. Ian, stuff you didn't like or didn't sit well with you on this movie.
Okay, so the very beginning when they're talking about the silent crime wave, they mention like the fact that people haven't seen these people. There's no witnesses, and then they clearly show us someone witnessing the crime and seeing who did it. So that was kind of an issue I had because I'm like, she fucking saw it. The fact that like the one pickpocket passes off 5 times, that's absurd. That's fucking absurd. That doesn't need to, like, just get to the fucking movie. So very early on when April is leaving the television station and she gets scared of a rat, she lives in New York fucking City. She can't still be scared of rats. She would not be able to live in that city anymore, being that terrified of rats. So
That's
then,
a setup and payoffs, just so when she finds Splinter later, you get the same payoff.
I would be more scared of the turtle people than the fucking giant rat if I lived in New York City, because giant rats are a thing. Second, so She then participates in her own crime wave when she is attacked by those muggers and is saved by Raphael. I think that's which one it was. Ugh.
Yes, of course it was.
She then steals evidence. In front of the cops, she just steals evidence. Says nothing to no one. At no point does she ever use that Psy as like an investigation tool into like the Turtles or the Foot Clan. She just straight up steals a knife that is evidence at an active crime scene she was a participant in.
I honestly never thought of it that way, but you make a valid point there.
And then when the turtle, this is still on the Psy, Raphael is pissed he lost that Psy. He is very upset about it. He mentions it several times. Is like punching walls and shit. And then Splinter, after just explaining how they have to be like secretive and they can't let people like know who they are, he's like, "Oh, who gives a shit? You lost it. No big deal." What the fuck was the whole thing about being secretive and no one finding out?
I feel like Splinter's telling him that so that he doesn't try to go and retrieve it and get caught. Because it's already gone. There's nothing that can be done about it. If he makes a big deal out of it, Raph's just going to go out there and try and get it back because it's what he would do.
So then he then follows it up by just letting him go to the movies.
I mean, he does actually go to the movie. Like, that's sort of how...
But that's literally what happens, like, right after. He's like, I'm going to the movies. And I'm like, the fuck? It also bring up that apparently if you wear a hat, no one knows you're a turtle.
Again,
like,
New
what?
York City.
Yeah, it's New York.
But the rats are terrifying. But men wearing hats that look just like turtles, eh.
Can we also interject? He came out of Critters and criticized it, and I wasn't a fan of that.
I
Critters
needed
is an
an
awesome
I'm so
attack.
movie.
excited he broke Skype.
I needed attack. Once again, I feel like these hacks didn't realize what movie they were writing. 2 turtles can't wear hats. I wrote that down.
I'm not
And
sure if
then
that's
we
a
get-
universal
It's an
rule.
actual
but
note.
okay.
It's
An
on
actual
here.
note, turtles can't wear hats.
Next, then Casey shows up and he fights in a pun-based style where all of his attacks have to be jokes about the thing he's holding. So we get like 10 hockey jokes that were just tiresome. And then that leads into like the finale when we then get a golf joke, which was just like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Just like, fucking do your job.
I love how
What was
Also-
his
like,
job,
holding
by the
his
way?
tongue
What
right now.
was Casey Jones' actual job in this? Like, was he just a...
I
He's
gotta
a
I gotta
street
talk about
rat.
that.
He mentions that he was actually
But his job or his street
professional
rat?
for a year and then hurts his knee. Yeah.
Less than a year. Not even a year.
Oh, right. But that's... I mean, so he's homeless now?
I wrote that down too. Are we
I'm
gonna
just
are we gonna
wondering.
break
Like,
into
I don't know.
the
I
psyche of
I don't think
Casey
it gets
Jones? 'Cause
addressed
I'm ready
like as
for
to
that.
what he's doing now. I used to be a professional. Well, you look homeless.
You run around the
And-
streets at night and hang out with turtles and sewers. You're a
I-
crazy person.
That's true. I did write down Casey is homeless, I guess. But definitely mentally ill, right? Like we're agreeing on that.
Oh, yeah. And
He's kinda
April
rapey
thinks
I mean,
she
too.
can fix him.
that's not really in the negative column for me.
This-
It's just more,
This
are
is
we
the
in
thing.
agreement that that's what happens in this?
Well, but like I said, don't forget, like he is definitely kind of rapey.
Yeah.
See, again on that, I don't get that.
You don't get that when he like throws April down into the chair forcefully to massage her?
What scene?
That is rapey as hell.
Oh, for some reason, I thought you were still talking about the attacks the kids in the woods scene. I'm like, how are you connecting those two?
So, anyways, I'm rewinding a bit because I see us skip this one because it's followed up by like a half good thing. But they get that pizza and they didn't even tip.
Well, the guy was late.
And they shorted him $3 on that, but then
Yeah.
they also didn't tip. That's 2. You can't not tip and short him. You pick one.
Can we
That's
be
coming out of his pocket.
can we be amazed though that these mutated animal beings somehow have either found or earned or have mastered the abstract concept of currency and commerce?
No.
They're also teenagers. They're not introduced to this shit yet. They're they're learning.
Yeah, that
The
was like their
world.
weekly
They're not
allowance. He only had
adults yet.
$10 to spare.
Then order a cheaper pizza or go pick it up yourself because you can wear a hat and no one gives a fuck. So next, the April's interviewing the chief at some point, and she's been told like 5 times, just like that fuck from Venom, to like cool your jets, bro. So this is actually just now the Venom story. And then I'm wondering, why is the chief giving this lady interviews if he knows this is what's gonna happen? And then he calls her in to like yell at her. I'm like, this is not how any of this works. Why is this happening? Okay, this was a great joke. I think we all like. She gets like a phone call or something. Oh, those guys like break in or they're following her, the Foot Clan, and she's like, "Am I behind on my Sony payments?" Guys, get that? Her Sony payments? Anyone get that joke? No. Moving on.
1990s.
But
Yeah, I was 5 at that time. I don't know what Sony used to do.
did Sony have a credit system? Did Sony get into banking in the 90s? Nope.
I wrote that
So
down.
did you guys get this joke? He's sniffing. It's only Knife Street.
I need to ask about this. No, because I wrote this. I knew before I turned the movie on that I was going to write this note down. I still don't understand that joke. They're walking through the sewer and they're like, "Whoa, we're trying to find April's place. Like, are we close?" I think she asked, and he's like, 11th and Bleecker? Nope, this is only 9th Street. Get it? Does anybody get that? Like, what does that?
Yeah. So
What does it mean?
here, Josh. Here's my next note. Are these even jokes? Are they? I don't fucking know, and neither does these hack writers. Goodbye, Mike.
Mike just gave up.
No, I
So-
didn't give anything up. I'm here. You're fine.
You're not there. You disappeared.
I'm aware. It's fine.
Anyway, so next, I guess, who cares when this takes place, I guess, but so they're in April's apartment, and she's all hot and bothered, and one of the turtles is like, "Were you drinking coffee?" So does caffeine give off like a scent? Like, is this caffeine sweat? I didn't understand why that was a joke. Is that a joke, Josh?
When does that happen?
I don't know. They're in her apartment.
No, after her boss shows up in like early in the morning and
Probably.
they go through their whole thing
Yeah.
and they leave. The turtles pop back out of their hiding spots and startle her, and so it like makes her jumpy. So Michelangelo says, "Time to switch to decaf." I think he was just making a point that, oh, you must be high strung or
Scared the shit out of you. Yeah.
high, like jittery because I just like made you jump and surprised you. That was all.
Okay, that's one joke that is kind of a joke.
Can I ask you this before? Did you ever enjoy this?
I mean, I think I did, but it's been so long, maybe I never did. Let's see. I forget what this is about, but I put Hog Grapes of Wrath. Is there a Grapes of Wrath like
yeah,
picture or
he
something?
mentions how the house that they go to looks like it's from the Grapes of Wrath.
Yep.
Was that a good joke?
I mean,
I'd never watched the Grapes of Wrath, honestly.
No, that didn't kick. Okay. This was hilarious when Casey calls her Broadzilla because he respects women.
see, okay.
I told you,
this-
he's a
Oh,
hippie.
this-
and
wait,
then the
wait.
movie straight. Go ahead.
Wait, that particular scene, I will jump in to try to defend again because in that moment, it's also not like April takes any of his shit. She kicks it right back to him and doesn't like allow
So-
herself. If that particular
So she
Yeah,
then
but in the
attacks
next
a
moment, he
mentally
forces her into a
challenged homeless
massage and she
man.
lets it go.
So she attacks a mentally challenged homeless man, and we're supposed to be okay with that?
Oh my God.
you weren't okay. Wait a minute. No.
Answer the question, Josh.
So it's bad that he made the comment to her, and it's bad when she defends herself against him because of his condition. But he's not off the
Yes.
hook for what he said because of his condition.
She should have explained to him why it was wrong and not attacked him.
I think you're giving the 1990s too much credit.
And
Can you
finally, my last note, and also the last negative note, but it's the last thing that happened. Casey murdered a man, and no one cared.
I wrote that down. too.
Straight up murders a man, and no one says a fucking word about it. And I don't even think the cops
Wasn't
looked
it
into it.
multiple?
No, I'm talking about when literally Shredder falls into the back of
No,
a
I'm saying,
garbage
doesn't
truck
he, like-
and he crushes him.
But doesn't he literally kill somebody right before that?
Probably. I mean, he smacked the dude in the head with a golf club. He probably killed him. But this is
That's
a
what I mean.
murder. This is a murder that I know for sure this happened. This
I mean,
man
he
is
said,
dead.
"Oops." He did it accidentally.
This is not
He
the
said,
Animaniacs.
"Whoops."
This is a
mean-
world with consequences where you get fired for asking the tough questions, and you should go to jail for murder.
So can I talk about the golf club scene for a second? Because I do have an issue with that.
How it's not a boring sport, I agree.
No, not that actually. I don't have really an opinion on golf as a sport, but it's more so that he hits this guy in the face with a driver, right? And he brings back a clean driver to kiss it without a bunch of teeth and blood all over it.
Well, they
See,
had
I
to
thought
keep
you were
it
That
PG
guy's
gonna
face
be-
would just be a mangled mess.
But he switches it out for a 2-iron. That makes no fucking sense.
Well,
Like,
he
why
was,
wouldn't you use
in
another driver?
close?
There's
I
more
don't
drivers in there. Why did he grab a 2-iron?
know. I don't have an answer for that.
That's the
agree.
hill that you're
It's
going
a
to
bit of a
die on with
strange
these
choice.
writers.
I'm just saying that was a poor choice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he
someone
was
should have
definitely
caught that when they were
he was in
looking at the
5-wood
dailies.
range. He was not at 2-iron range, you know. And for some people, 5-wood and 2-iron are fairly close ranges, but you got to make the green. And I feel like he made a poor choice. He's a better caddy.
And I'll finish it up by saying, I'm behind on my Sony payments.
That's gonna be a bit for you from now on, isn't it?
Teespring.com/Leroy Exports so I can get ahead on my Sony payments.
Every episode is gonna produce like one. You gotta like harness like what's a custom run. We're only gonna make 50. Am I behind on my Sony payment shirts?
He's gonna make a shirt that says, "I'm behind on my Sony payments."
Yes. gotta go for the
Got a
exclusivity of the apparel.
Like a clip art of just a TV or something on the front of the shirt, and then the back of it'll say that.
No, on the back it'll say critters.
Well, who wants to follow up Ian's stuff he didn't like? Okay, Josh, you got it.
All right, so
Remember, these are supposed to be negative.
Remember, this is
I know.
negatives.
I know. So I have a few perhaps. They're more like
Perhaps.
critical things rather than like pure negatives perhaps. I took the most amount of notes for probably like any episode we've done ever. But definitely any of the rewinds so far on this one. I would say that I think while the expressionism in the costumes they make for Secret of the Ooze are improved, I like the general look of these turtle costumes better, and overall this movie better. Particularly like in Secret of the Ooze, their mouths are able to be a bit more exacting, I think, in how they're forming words. But I still think like the Jim Henson shop did a really good job in making something that looked good.
The problem with these turtle outfits is there are very clear points in fight scenes where they cannot move quickly. It is so
Yes.
slowed down and exaggerated. You're like, holy fuck, this is taking forever. This is as bad as some of the like that bloodshot in the tunnel where he was fighting a dude for what felt like 2 hours. Like they were
To be honest, though,
fucking slow.
in the 1990s, I'm surprised they can move at all in those things. So the freedom of movement that they get already is top notch, I think, for me, for what they could do back then.
Pretty impressive for the time. But
Considering
agreed,
those probably are not
you
light
can see-
costumes.
Oh, they're not.
You can
The
see how
people in those
restricted they are.
costumes lost 70 pounds during filming.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I do not doubt it.
That was
That's
actually
Turtle Fact 1.
that was actually my next point, Ian, was about the like fight choreography. I said definitely left something to be desired. In particular, there's a couple shots when Raphael is getting attacked on the rooftop before he gets thrown into April's apartment. And you don't even have to really look clearly, you just have to know the moment you're looking for. There's a few spots where he's simply like moving around near some of the foot soldiers. He doesn't even make a move toward them like, here's a punch, there's a kick. He just like, oh, I'm moving this way, you're behind me, and the next thing you know, like that guy has fallen down in a corner unconscious. So there's a couple moments like that.
A couple.
I would say once April's apartment gets set on fire during that fight, and Casey Jones is like, "Oh, hold them off, you guys get out." How in the hell do like those remaining 25 people just not bum rush one guy with a goalie stick and maul him to death? Like that just doesn't. Seeing it again does not work for me.
That's movie logic for ages. It's the same reason you'd see
Sure.
Bruce Lee take on 12 guys and beat them all because they fought him one by one.
Right.
It's
and
not.
You look at that scene and like they're all just like kind of like standing around tentatively and like just you all go for him. You'll kill him in like 4 seconds.
The same thing happens.
Well, remember, they recognize
at the very
Go ahead,
end
Andy.
when the turtles are fighting Shredder. So
Oh yeah. Well, at least Shredder acknowledges that. Like he says, if you would have all taken me on at once, you could have beat me, but you decided to go one-on-one.
so
But their whole thing
Yeah.
is fighting with
So
honor,
why did-
which is why they went
Yeah.
one-on-one.
why did Shredder like let them like huddle up and try to decide on like a strategy and stuff?
Because he's a
like
badass. He doesn't give a shit.
It's just like that's
Yeah.
He knows his defense is enough nearly to defeat them.
that's akin to like Dr. Evil letting like Austin Powers and then like putting him over the shark tank or whatever, and then just like, oh, I'm just gonna let him go. I know it's gonna work.
Exactly, and
It's
then so
just-
that shows that is
yeah.
to his folly. Because had he maybe done something like that, he would have defeated them and done off with them before Splinter showed up and outwitted him and
Well,
handed him his
yeah.
ass.
I mean, in that specific scenario, if he goes in to attack them all, I feel like they do gang up on him and beat him. If he lets them come to him one by one, because that's what they did, he wins.
Yeah, agreed. So I'm going to take my next point to a dark place for like 2 seconds, but I'm going to come right out of it with something funny. The all fathers care for their sons line that Splinter gives to Danny worked way better when I was 8 years old as opposed to things that happened later in my life. Other things that may not have landed or aged well at this point. The moonlighting joke. Probably nobody younger than 35, 40 is going to get that if they understood it at the time.
1990s pop culture references.
Yeah,
Which-
at the
and
time, I
also
did not
happens
understand
not
that.
too long after that is it's a Kodak moment. Which is it not, to be fair, is not necessarily like a sign of like, oh, they, that was a silly reference to try to make. I mean, nobody could have predicted, 15, 20 years later that Kodak would nearly cease to exist and things would
Right.
change. But that's just one that obviously for the times, if you showed this to even a 20-year-old now for the first time, they probably wouldn't know what that means.
But at least that's a joke.
The other ones to you don't qualify as jokes.
Honestly, no.
Okay, so I do have a negative related to Casey that I did write down that you talked about before. I said, yes, apparently women love to be forced into chairs to get shoulder rubs they didn't know they wanted after shirking off the unsolicited contact the first time.
Rapey.
I will give you that. In that moment, I think there's also a big difference between the other moments of Casey that they portrayed and a specific instance labeling somebody overall in general as like the thing he may have done using, modern vernacular was rapey. Would I say that Casey Jones seems like a rapey character or personality? No, I would not.
I think it's just the whole idea of him being kind of a dick and forcing himself into the situation that April eventually giving into that. That's a problem.
Potentially, sure. That I wouldn't argue against. I don't know if this is a negative per se, but I did write down the other issues with Casey, perhaps. So he's obviously a former pro athlete, and maybe this explains at least some of his other eccentric behaviors. So he says he was injured. He played less than a year, so his dreams are crushed. His, you don't make it to be a pro athlete just like, oh, I picked up a hockey stick in college. Like, he's probably working at that since he was 6 years old. He makes it to the big leagues, gets injured, and he's put out in less than a season. He's probably put on painkillers. He becomes depressed. He spirals out of control. His life has fallen apart. The mental health issues develop over those years. And so he ends up being a guy that runs through Central Park at 11 o'clock at night, hanging out in trees with cricket bats and stuff. It tracks.
To beat up children. Remember, he's going there to beat up children.
criminals first of all.
He's
But the other
Children.
but the other point that I don't
Batman doesn't go around beating up children.
I have
exactly. I was
something
gonna say
about
he's Batman without the funding or the morals.
I have something about it written down, but it's not really in the negative column. It's in like the neutral. I just observed this column, so we'll get to that later. Okay, that's it. That's all I got for negatives.
Again, since Josh just brought it up, Raphael prevents Casey from murdering children in Central Park.
But that's also because
He was going
the
to
turtles
murder
are
those
the
children.
heroes. He definitely was about to. I agree. He had that stick raised to execution heights.
So
All right. So, any volunteers for other negatives? Andy.
I'll run through
I
the list
suppose I
again.
will. I did not keep any notes, so I'm just sort of riffing off what I saw. How in the hell does Splinter let Raphael go to the movies with a trench coat and a hat, and then all the while calling them ninjas? I'm not sure how that works.
Only a ninja could pull
Can't
that off.
tell. I mean, good.
I mean, it
Lord.
totally tracks. Like, he goes like that, and no one calls him on it. So obviously, fucking ninja.
Oh, okay.
Again, now that it's been
Doesn't
brought
the
up,
Thing do the same thing in the Fantastic Four movie?
Yeah. See, it works.
It works.
were they not allowed to say ninjutsu?
They did.
Like they kept saying like ninja, I feel like, and never ninjutsu, even when it would have made more sense to say ninjutsu.
No, they did ninjutsu when they did the tequila song. Dun, 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 and then they did ninjutsu. They said it. They said the word.
So not
It
when they
happened.
were like talking about using the art of ninjutsu during a
No.
haha funny moment thing.
Yes.
I thought
I'm just.
That- everything plot wise was wholly rushed.
It moves. It's an hour and a half,
it's
so it
just,
goes
like,
quick.
You don't even like have time to like recognize like the relationships that are forming in front of you while it's going. You know, I don't know. It was like I was like, I feel like this is missing meat to it that I used to think it had.
I feel like isn't that kind of like a sign of the times though? Because wasn't the 90-minute movie kind of a thing during that time frame?
I think.
it was
Yeah, I think, you know,
14.
today's standards, 2 hours is the bar. Hour and a half was probably the bar back then. Especially for a kids movie. You make a kids movie 2 hours long. I don't think people were going for that back then.
The fire at April's house apparently wasn't that bad because they go back to her house and it's still there.
I did not notice that. I
when
thought they were at the antique shop with the fire. though.
Yeah.
Is that where
Her
she
house
lives?
is above
Or
the
her-
antique shop.
Yeah, her apartment's
Yeah.
right above that.
So the whole thing catches on fire. And then
When
they're
did they go
there.
back?
You're right.
Didn't they go back? He's like, oh, this isn't so bad, and then they go into the sewer.
when they come back into the city.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you could take it that
Yeah.
way. I never took it that way, but I maybe you could.
But I
Like Casey thinks he's at a particular place, and then they're like, "We're going down in the
Yeah.
sewer." Oh, okay.
thought that was the antique
could see
shop,
that.
and it looked like it did in the other scene. So, all right.
Oh, then I totally missed that too. Then if
Unless
that's
I
what
missed
where
it,
they
I mean,
went.
maybe it was too fast, but
But not too furious.
I'm curious why Casey Jones has to put on a foot soldier costume, because I don't think anybody gives a shit who you are, where you
Who
are.
Casey is, yeah.
Yeah, he could have just walked around and been like, "Oh yeah, hey, what's up, kids?" And they'd have been all right with it, you know.
Like, That was more Lord of the Flies than the Astro Boy Lord of the Flies thing.
Casey's too old. He had to put the disguise on, so he made him
Yeah.
look younger.
and
But if he just walked around with like 2 cartons of cigarettes, I'm like, it's a cigarette guy.
and the last standout negative, and it's bothered me ever since the movie came out, even when I was younger, is the final song, the Turtle Power, is a great song, but they mention Raphael as the leader, and that's bullshit. He is not.
I have to re-listen to the lyrics
Yeah,
then. I
because
think
Raphael,
Yeah, I
blah,
never
blah, he's
noticed
the leader
that.
of the group. Yeah.
For 30 years, I have
It's
just
like-
listened in ignorant bliss and enjoyed
Yeah.
the general
Now,
sound.
Raphael takes
Same.
he's like the main turtle in this movie.
And I think that's someone that like watched the movie and was like, "Well, make a song about it." So that's what they
Yeah,
did,
but
not
yeah,
knowing
anybody
the
that knows
lore.
anything about the Teenage Mutant Ninja
We-
Turtles, whether cartoon or comic book leading up to this, knew that Leonardo was definitely the leader. In fact, Raphael calls him the leader.
calls him out on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But wasn't this in relation to the cartoon kind of prior to a lot of it? Didn't like this kick off the cartoon's success?
I thought the cartoon kicked off the
Cartoon
movie.
started in 87.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the movie came
Yeah.
from the cartoon. Yeah. Which, I mean, coming off of the cartoon and you watch the movie, the tones are vastly different.
They stuck more to the comic book with the tone in this than
Yeah.
the cartoon.
And
Much darker.
So you can definitely see it course correct by the time 2 comes around. They're like, you know what, we got to make it more like the cartoon.
And it's not a negative, but something that I noticed from one of the very first scenes that I always in my mind was different was Raphael's sai takes out the light with the butt of the sai. I always assumed it was the bladed part that took out the light.
It also kind of just completely biffs the shot and misses.
Yeah.
When you see it in HD, it's not
Yeah.
close.
It's
They
also
went through
kind of
3
like a
takes throwing it
delay.
to the light bulb, and they was like, well, that's good enough. We'll just use that one.
Fix
Yeah,
it
I
in
mean-
post.
These are kids watching this. They're never going to see this.
Yeah.
This won't be out on video cassette for a year and a half, and then who can freeze frame that? They won't see it.
I know it's a kids movie, but it irritates me that half of the turtles have pointy objects for weapons and they can't use them
Right.
effectively.
Yeah.
I got that too.
Leonardo always gets disarmed and never uses his swords to kill anybody. Raph never uses his sais to hit anybody because he's missing them for half the movie. Casey Jones uses Leo's sword more effectively than Leonardo does when he's chopping vegetables.
True.
That's why I would love to
I've got that
see-
as a big part of my negatives. I will discuss.
If any of that rolls up into negatives for anybody, I would love to see a more adult version of Turtles made then.
like an R-rated, yeah.
If need be, like something that like took this tone and ran with it.
Yeah, the
He has
Tiamat,
2
like the
katanas.
Logan version.
I'd assume he could do some Deadpool type shit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So the one thing that I don't know is I've never actually read Ninja Turtles comic books. I've never really looked into certain like aspects of some of the source material. Are the foot soldiers in the comic books people or robots? Does anyone know?
People.
They're
people.
robots in the arcade game.
And they're robots on the
In
TV
the cartoon,
show.
they were
On
robots
the cartoon, right.
too.
Which I'm assuming that's how you get through the easy morality clause of we're not
They-
really killing people and we can show fights
Yeah,
and
but
destruction and
The
you
the
can use
comic book
those
was not
swords.
made for children. It's a very dark story. It's a very dark tone.
It
And you
is.
can kind of see when the shift comes, when the cartoons started to get more popular, and they start to introduce more things along the lines of like the Mousers and Baxter Stockman and stuff like that. It starts to come around like that time where they start to take that shift and make things a little bit of a lighter tone. And
Yeah. I
that's
want to
where
say
like Krang starts.
Yeah.
It-
Who was it? Eastman and Laird were the two
Mhm.
that created the comic
Yeah.
book and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember having like the first one, and it's dark, and that's even before they colorized their. I don't know what do you call them.
They were all
masks.
red.
They
I mean,
were
well, it was a
all
black
red.
and white comic at first, and then eventually
Yeah.
they were colored in
They were all-
years later.
Yeah,
But the covers had them as all red.
all red. Yep.
Yeah, I think to sort of Mike's point, I think the comic issue it was definitely more like noir in tone,
Mhm.
like the black and white artistry, and I think they were just straight up killing people
Yes.
in the comic.
Yeah, I do believe there was a good
You
amount
can
of
see
blood.
dismemberment. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like
feel
it's-
like and maybe it's just the way I'm remembering it. I don't know if it's right or not, but like it's black and white until they kill someone, and then there's red, almost like a Sin City type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's rather
So-
violent in the first few years of the comic.
So I think like
So
my
it's one thing I always wondered, like, you know, you take that source material and then you get the 80s cartoon out of it. So are the creators of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that wrote the comic book like really pissed off that suddenly their dark and gritty creation has now been created into this kids-friendly cartoon?
As far as I understood that, actually, Kevin Eastman was not upset with it and was okay with that change, and Peter Laird hated it. Well, right, but Peter Laird hated what they did with it. So it was like kind of a divide amongst them and kind of caused them to have a rift personally in their friendship for a while.
So that's the stick by our creative vision or take the cash out.
Right.
Those are your two
I mean,
opposing views.
I'm
To be
sure
fair,
once the other
they
guy
were
got
kinda
past the
raking it in
300
on-
million mark in his bank account, he started to lighten a little bit.
No, evidently they're still fairly cold.
I mean, maybe towards each other, but his,
Yeah.
his view about what's been done to his material probably softens the blow a little bit.
I feel like it maybe
As
this
far
is
as I know,
starting
they
to jog
stopped
a memory
working
somewhere.
together.
It's something I watched recently,
They
maybe
haven't
within the last
since.
year. It might have been like the Toys That Made Us, I think, on Netflix. I think they did something on Ninja Turtles, and by the end of the episode, they brought the two creators back together. Like they reunited them for the show.
Oh,
This is a couple
how did
years
that
ago.
go?
Surprise! Well, I won't spoil it for the show for if you want to watch it, but I think Mike, did you watch it? Is that what I'm talking about? Is that the right show?
I believe you have the right show.
Okay.
I think that's the one.
At least
that did it.
if you want to check it out, I want to make sure I'm pointing people in the right direction. Yeah, but I think it's on Netflix. The Toys That Made Us. I think they have a Turtles episode, so check that out. I think they talk about a little bit what Mike was talking about, how the creators had a falling out. They haven't talked for years, and I think they finally come around and try to get them back together for part of the episode. So that was interesting to watch.
Don't quote me on this, but if I remember things correctly, one of like the breaking points with like the cartoon and all the stuff they were doing was Leatherhead. And like Peter Laird just could not stand the idea of Leatherhead and like how dumb the idea was, and then it just kind of spitballed from there, or snowballed from there.
It's like out of everything else that the Turtles have done, that's where you draw the line, is that character.
No, I
That's
mean
where
that was
the
one of
shark got
actually
jumped.
like the earlier characters that they created for just the cartoon.
Right.
And
But I mean, like, the franchise as itself just had weird fucking shit with it the whole time.
right, but it was I think it was like because it was weird but dark still, like Baxter Stockman's story and Krang originally, like that whole thing, and Shredder's story, and a lot of what they had done with the comics with these crazy characters still kept that tone that was in line with what they were doing. And then Leatherhead comes along, and they're just like, we want a Western alligator who throws knives at people. And they didn't have like this backstory. They didn't have an explanation. It was just, it's a colorful character kids will like, so we're going to make it, and you're going to deal with it. And that's kind of where like the breaking point was.
It's merchandising right there. Make an action figure.
Right, make something they could sell and not worry about the narrative behind it. And that's kind of where Peter Laird just broke on it. Like, no, that's a dumb thing. You don't have it doesn't have a story. It doesn't have anything real. And he couldn't allow it to go forward. Like, well, he allowed it to go forward, obviously, but he didn't like it. And it kind of broke their friendship as a starting point, I guess.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Um,
real quick, like based on what they did create, I think my desire to see something more mature is not necessarily coming out of a like, yay, bloodlust is cool, right? Position. But if they are going to create characters, as you pointed out, like started this comment with, one of them is wielding double swords, one of them has size. What are those things really going to do if you put them up against a human enemy?
Well,
Like if you want them to have them, then at this point in my life, I want to see the natural extension and believability of what that would be, if that makes sense. Like if that's
right,
not
and
what these
there's-
characters had, I wouldn't care. But you're right, like it stands out like a sore thumb if you have a character wielding two katanas that doesn't really affect or get used against anything.
well, and you see Leo swing them. in the one fight scene. He does like the little silly, like he swings both of them, the guy ducks. He swings them, he ducks. He swims and he ducks. Then he stops. And instead of actually just chopping the fucker's head off, he just like shoves him and kicks the guy behind him. And it's like, well, that's a missed opportunity for some good action. Like,
Carnage.
I feel like if you watch the fight scenes, there's once or twice that I noticed where he does make contact with someone with the swords. They just do nothing.
Does
The guy
nothing.
just falls
Yeah.
over.
it's more like
I
he
mean,
hits them with his wrist and the sword at the same time. Like he just backs his hand into them.
I think
Yeah.
the only reaction you ever see from the swords is Shredder going,
Mhm.
oh,
Got his arm the one time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like they don't even look like real weapons outside of the scene where they're cutting like vegetables. Like the side looks like a toy. Like it looks like one of the toys they sold.
What's on brand then? That's what they wanted. Sell all that merchandise.
Yeah.
Andy, do you have anything else dislike type of thing you want to touch on?
Yeah, at one point, this is the last one. At one point, Splinter mentions to Danny or the rest of the Foot kids that Shredder's using them for his own personal gain or whatever.
Yeah.
We never find that out. We never find out what Shredder's actually up to, what he wants to do, why they're stealing all this stuff. Nothing like that.
To fund his crime empire. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We don't
like
know
a-
what
Nothing
yeah,
the
like-
crime is other than stealing.
ambiguous theft.
Yeah,
He's
they're just
stealing to fund
stealing.
stealing.
A bunch
Yeah.
of shit for why.
They're recruited to the Foot Clan. Then the kids get power, strong. That's why they go and fight each other until then they, for whatever reason, they then fight some like 40-year-old ninja dude, and that's your
Tatsu.
final test.
Well,
And
Splinter alludes to like some sort of ulterior motive that Shredder's making all these Foot kids like bend to his will for, and we never actually find out what that is.
Yeah, I guess I always thought the end game was just like recruiting for the army, like the Foot Clan army to build numbers. But from there, I don't know what the end game is for Shredder.
they would just start doing it like Yakuza stuff, like
Just taking over the city gang-wise type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Same
sorry,
thing we do
slightly
every
racist.
Frankie.
but like some of the kids would start doing accents and it'd get real weird.
There's a lot of hype going into this movie. Numerous people.
I think that's my last like critique.
Okay. Josh and Ian went. Mike, you got anything?
A couple interesting things to me to talk about in negative light. One, I feel like the final battle with Shredder plays over better for me if they have some previous encounter with him. This is the first time any of these turtles are meeting Shredder. They could have like set this up where when Splinter gets captured, they get defeated. And thus Splinter gets captured as opposed to finding Splinter missing when they come back. Have Shredder defeat them, capture Splinter, take him back, then they know what they're up against and they realize they're outmatched or something. And it to me would have made for a better narrative if it went
And also-
that way.
Am I misremembering this? I feel like at some point, like when Splinter gets captured, they knew who Shredder was, but then when they see him, they no longer seem to know who Shredder was. Like I could have sworn his
Well-
name was brought up previously, either by April or someone else, and then by the final confrontation, they had forgotten his name.
I feel no. What happens? I think what you're remembering is like Splinter tells the story about like how the turtles were made and about
Yeah,
his
Master
former
Yoshi,
master,
yeah.
right, and all that. But they don't know that dude is Shredder.
And
You know what I mean?
Splint-
Like
yeah.
they don't know that
Oh,
guy's
yeah,
still
no.
around. They don't realize he's there and part of this conflict.
So
Until
I just swear his name comes up where they hear it and then they forget they heard it.
well, they are teenagers. I'd have to watch it.
Yeah, I'm
again
trying to think if like April
remember
mentioned
that.
Shredder in like any of her news reports or something like that, or is
They
she
might have
names dropped,
even
like
just-
the Foot.
Been shredding some rails. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but they're a bunch of Cali bros.
yeah, in New York. A minor but also major gripe I have. These guys are obsessed with pizza, right? So they get their pizza delivery. The guy puts the pizza vertical to go through the slot to get into the sewer. That pizza is fucking ruined at that point. There is not a normal slice of pizza left in there. Then
that's advertising for Domino's. Look, you can put it sideways through a sewer and it comes out fine.
Well, and it comes out fine, but also it's negative advertising for Domino's because Leonardo still has to cut his own fucking pizza. What Domino's pizza arrives uncut? He cuts the pizza himself. If they had made the pizza themselves, that scene works better. But to me, a delivered pizza is cut every time.
I'm not gonna.
It's a minor thing, but it's just just something I notice.
Slicing.
When they had it
dice the
vertical,
pizza
the cheese melted back together.
Maybe. There's some flaws in the pizza
They're
handling.
rebonded.
Yeah. Like the product placement, I was not, like the Domino's product placement thing. I know we mentioned the Noid. Did you catch it?
I avoided the Noid.
That was
You did
one of
not
my positives.
Oh, okay. I'll
The
let you
Noid
get
was
to
in
it
this.
at that time then.
But also
Um,
the great Burger King advertisement in the beginning.
Oh, I saw
yeah,
that.
the Whopper, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when those were colors.
But yeah, the product placement stuff was a little bit heavy for a couple things, and it was heavy-handed, but it was okay.
There's a lot of Pepsi floating around that Foot Clan dojo.
Yeah. Narc, the arcade game.
Yeah.
Was,
Hard
very
ass game too. Very
prominently
difficult.
featured.
Those Sony payments.
The Sony, yeah, like it just they did a lot of that in there, and it was a thing, and I don't know how I felt
You
about
have to wonder
that.
what the bidding war was between like Pizza Hut and Domino's to get one brand in the movie on top of the other. Because I'm pretty sure they switched to Pizza Hut somewhere
It does.
down the line.
No, the next movie, I'm pretty sure it
Okay.
switches.
All right.
Yeah.
Because
Pizza
that's
Hut was
also
like,
when they
we
started
need
doing
that
the
TMNT
tie-in with
bump.
Pizza Hut, like in the stores. And then there's
Yeah.
also now I'm wondering why they didn't like get licensed like baseball bats and hockey sticks and shit. Like, where
Okay,
was
so-
Wilson?
The Jose Canseco
so-
bat.
One thing I looked up too, other than thinking about the Pizza Hut sponsorship, does anyone remember the Turtles concert
Oh yeah.
in the 90s?
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
They're coming out of their
Shells.
Shells tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was paid for and sponsored by Pizza Hut,
Yeah.
which I didn't know until I happened to try to look up like Wikipedia, like when it was, and that was like the first line is Pizza Hut paid for that concert to happen. They were the driving force behind that thing.
That makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
It was probably a good
I mean-
payoff for them too.
That's where I played the TMNT arcade game.
I played that
Oh yeah.
game everywhere I could. The
Kennywood?
Tilt arcade at the mall, Monroeville Mall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kennywood. I haven't been to Kennywood that much since I've been like 20, but if the couple times I've gone, I will still go to that arcade that is near the entrance to the park and see if they have that Turtles cabinet.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, it really, the Turtles were flourishing everywhere. And you had these video games. Let's not talk about the shitty NES game. But
What-
you had all this stuff
What
going
shitty
on.
NES game?
I think he's talking about Battletoads.
Maybe.
Thank God they remade that so that joke was topical again.
Yes, it still works. What was it? Zit, and what was the other one's name?
They'll probably like throw up. Mucus.
No, it was
They're all
something else
terrible
like
names.
It
Toad
was like
related.
Pimple, wasn't it? Zit, Pimple, and somebody else.
Wart, maybe?
I don't. What'd you say?
Is it Pimple and the normal one?
Wart?
Wart. That makes sense.
Maybe.
That tracks.
I didn't play the new one, but it showed that they changed the tone in the next movie because they used this one, they gained the popularity, and then we all know what happened after the next movie and why we didn't have another one for a long time after 3.
Because the samurai budget was too high in 3?
Yeah,
It costs a lot to go back in time.
I guess. But I guess one of the things I would want to mention, since I want to stick to negatives, why does New York City always look wet at night in this movie?
I think that's most movies.
Well,
It just looks
'cause I-
wet in every scene.
I feel like this is when they're going back to like the comic book roots for this, where it's like a Daredevil, New Mutants like parody thing, and that's New York. It's wet and dark at night, and everyone like doesn't care about turtles walking around. I think like structurally that was it, but like they were like, we cannot get these suits wet. Guys, we are not soaking these fucking suits. Do you know how heavy those would be if we got these wet?
You know what? And
I
maybe
feel
that
like that's what
adds to
happened.
it. I feel like that adds to it because they're so dry, and then their surroundings are so wet. Like it makes it that contrast really like messed with my brain a little bit.
I'm now trying to wonder when they are trying to drown the one turtle. I don't think his head's wet after when it comes out of the water.
Donatello, yeah, he spits the water in somebody's face afterwards.
They're
And that's
amphibians,
what
they're
that's
fast
what I remember. They like abused the like cutesy sound effects with it. Is that one got like the long whistle thing for him blowing out the water? And then you like notice that the rest of the fight, like some of these sound effects are kind of fucking weird.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, isn't that same fight that Michelangelo's beating somebody up with cymbals? Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, they're not taking themselves 100% seriously even at this point. But it's still wonderful at the same time to me. So negatives, it could have been a 2-hour movie. Could have been longer.
Could have been
Could have just
shorter.
had more of it.
Yeah, I never actually looked to see if there's like deleted scenes for this movie or not. So I don't know if they exist or what they would add, but I'm kind of curious.
They would add Venus.
Something that always bothered me as well. Sorry. It just popped into my head. At the end, when Shredder gets knocked into the trash compactor, there's blood all over. It looks like there's blood all over different parts of this trash compactor
It's
as
a
it's
rusted red dump truck.
going. But it looks like it's blood.
It is always. I
I'm
always
saying
Right,
like the
but I
way
think
they
that's how
film
they-
it with everything being wet, with all this stuff going on, it looks like blood is in places it doesn't belong. And it's just like, I don't know, the cinematography there just like makes it look wrong.
Maybe
And
that's how they got around it.
No, that's a New York
It's like-
City dump truck. They're just covered in blood.
There's
that
probably
too.
like 3 other bodies in there already,
Yeah, I mean,
like prior to Casey stealing it.
yeah.
I mean, picture that.
It
scene.
also makes no sense.
It's new. So the New York City they have pictured for us, they have created for us, has a working garbage truck just parked at the end of the street
Well, he probably fled from the fighting.
I'm assuming Casey just started it up because the key's in the ignition. It didn't show him having to like struggle to hotwire the thing. So the doors are unlocked. It's accessible. The keys are there to just for any random civilian
Well-
to just steal an operating garbage truck in the middle of the night. If that's the type of city that we're working with here, the fact that there might already be blood on it is not hard for me to believe.
Well, yeah, but you also have like the fact that why the fuck would he even go for this garbage truck?
To get
Like
those
they're
guys
climbing
off
up
the
this ladder at like the slowest pace ever because he has time to notice them climbing up the ladder, look, find the garbage truck, run to the garbage truck, start the garbage truck, presumably learn how to put it in reverse, and then fix the mirrors so they adjust so he can see exactly where he's going to reverse it right into the ladder without actually killing any of them in the process.
So now you're worried about Casey not trying to kill people? Because I thought we established he is trying to kill people.
Hold on. So this is Mike, this is very defensible why those guys were slow. So by this point, we're on like the D team. The A team got burned in a fire. The B team is
Well,
lying
wait,
on
wait,
the
wait.
streets. And the C team just got their heads kicked in with like golf clubs. This is now like the barely functional children, like foot soldiers climbing this
The
ladder.
just promoted
So
kids.
you don't play chess and you send out the bishops, the rooks, and the knights first, and the pawns stay back.
I mean, he sends out Tetsu on the very first fight, and that's like his general.
Yeah, but Tetsu's a commander. Like it's not he's there
He
to make
doesn't do
sure
a
that
good
they're
job
not
of it
just
either.
like
He just
Well-
stands there.
he says
And then he
ninja do
stands there and
this,
says,
ninja do
"Ninja
that.
time," so they know to hide.
Yeah, but
Be ninja time. Like
Let's
what?
not say ninja time.
whatever the
Ninja
case,
time? That's the quote.
thinking about it, we come back.
That's the
we
quote.
come
He
back
says,
to that
"Ninja
scene
time."
before we
It's
see
ninja
those
time.
guys.
Wait, Mike. Sorry, I don't want to. I'm questioning whether Ian rewatched this or not, or if all the notes that he wrote down were just from memory of whenever the last time was.
He watched the trailers for the movie and then was like, you know what, I'm going to be part of this.
Okay, hold on. There is no way Sony Payments was in the trailer.
He's got a point.
Oh,
He's got a point.
He watched Honest Trailers. That was where he got it from.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But
Ninja time. I like that.
That sounds way more peppy. So now
I feel like he's taking like Pizza Time from the video game. Because
Yeah.
you would pick up a pizza and they would go, Pizza Time.
I want to think of
And he's
Tatsu,
mixing that
running
with like
in,
Ninja Vanish, and now he's
shit,
got
we gotta get out.
Ninja Time.
Ninja Time!
And I like it.
For a little explosive thing.
I mean, he's already dubbed over, right? We just have to redub him. Every line he says can just be changed to Ninja
Ninja
time.
Time. And it works for everything they do.
Yeah. Ninja time.
When they get to that scene, just before he knocks them off the ladder, we come up to this scene. So up to this point, we had talked about how like the blades don't do anything and how they're not just outright murdering people and all that. We come to a scene of pure carnage and dead bodies everywhere.
They're probably unconscious. This is PG.
You know what, though? We come to a scene that just looks like a battlefield.
Like
You know
they're
what I mean?
hurt and they're deciding
It
not
looks
to move
like the
so they don't get
leftovers
beat
of
up any further.
Antietam when we get up there, and it's just accepted. Like the turtles did this. They did this. These are children. Like Ian said, these are children.
Well,
And
then
we're
those
left
kids
over
shouldn't be wearing
with these bodies
masks
everywhere.
so that they can see that they're kids, and maybe they won't punch them out.
So you go to the grocery store, you just start punching kids because they're wearing masks nowadays?
Well, are those
If I see a
kids,
kid in a
are those kids in masks trying to kill you?
I've seen kids in grocery stores do some wild shit, so maybe.
I
I
also
feel like you're
want to know,
excusing a couple of factors
Because then,
in this
yes,
scenario.
in the Foot Clan,
you
how do
do
you
punch
become the
them, yeah.
axe guy? Because they have an axe guy at one point that turns up with like an arm full of axes.
He's the
How
inventory
do you become
guy.
that guy?
He's the one.
How was your job with the Foot Clan? Like, you get axes. So like,
Those-
he
those
has to
look
decipher
like
when he says ninja time. that it means
Halberds.
go
They
get
weren't
the
even axes. I think they were halberds. They were like full shaft halberds.
Yeah.
Whatever the case.
I'm gonna say
And
that that was one of the earlier followers who showed loyalty but never really was adept at much, and Shredder was afraid of losing him because he knew a lot of shit. So he's like, "All right, Edgar, you're
my
the axe guy."
Edgar the Axe Man.
Told
All
him
right.
it was like a very important position. He had to go on some of the missions every now and then. Even when he didn't, Edgar always showed up with like 4 or 5 axes when he knew people were leaving, and like, I'm ready, boss." He's like, "Edgar, who's gonna guard those axes here if you go?" So that's how you become the
Yeah,
axe
you
guy.
just picture the guy that
So
shows up like Josh,
in
like
the-
with axes every fight. He's just waiting to be called
Yes.
on
Yeah,
from
he's
the
standing
bench.
in the background. He's like, "When do I take the axes in? Are we ready for axes? Do they
Yes.
need the axes?
Yeah.
Let's."
And
okay,
then,
got 'em.
as Ian said, like the D team had to get called in eventually. They had that many reserves. So once they had like JV come in the sewer fight, they're like, "All right, Edgar, we had you in the back. Get your ass down in that sewer. Start handing out some axes."
I
Well,
mean,
no, the
Nunchuck
axe-
guy was on the A team, so Axe guy's got to be back there somewhere.
Mhm.
Well, no, that was the A team too. That's the same fight.
Oh, that's true.
No,
yeah,
no, Nunchuck guy was the fight at April's apartment. Oh
So
no,
it's the
axe
axe
guy.
guy.
Axe guy was April.
it
because-
transitions into
Because
the antique store.
evidently,
That's
about
right.
10 swings from an axe is enough to destroy the structural integrity of a floor, so that 2 people jumping down onto it is enough to make it fall through. I had a problem with that as well. That to me, like today, I look at that and I'm like, so you think we can hit the floor a few times with an axe and then we can just jump on it and it's going to cave in? Okay.
There was a lot of bodies in
Um,
that apartment. That never took me out of it as a 6-year-old.
As a 6-year-old, it didn't. As an adult, I was like, And in the shape of a turtle, let's not forget, because he only swung that axe around one turtle. It's not like they were like chopping the floor in all these different places. It was just Michelangelo making fun of this guy that couldn't hit him with an axe.
Well, as an adult, I'm
one
voting
spot.
on the side of joy and electing to ignore that.
All the same, I'll end there on my negatives. I want to hear Brian's negatives.
I mean, I don't have too much left. I think after what we've covered so far. I think for me, we touched on it a little bit. I think that the tone of the movie is inconsistent for me. I think it definitely tries to go darker and gritty, like probably before it was cool, dark and gritty. But it still wants to hit that kids market, so it's just, I guess the only word to describe it that comes to mind is silly. Like there's just a lot of silliness there that contradicts the other dark tone that they are going for, which I get. It was made for kids. They want to get the cartoon market to come see a movie. You can't make it too bad because then you're going to scar kids for life or whatever. But I feel like I'd rather it go one way or the other. I think I might, I mean, when I was younger, I think I always liked number 2 better, Secret of the Ooze, because I think maybe it was more consistent in tone and it leaned into that silliness, which I think was more maybe what I liked from the Turtles back then. So I'm curious if that's going to sit as well with me watching it now as an adult whenever we get there. Another sequence for me that I thought just looked completely terrible, and I don't remember it looking that terrible, but it really stood out for me this time, was the whole mutation montage where Splinter's giving the story about the turtles in the sewer. It looks like figurines in front of a desktop wallpaper the way they shot it. Maybe that's just $13.5 million. That's what your budget gets, but it was bad.
It was never meant to be seen in HD. Let's also
Maybe.
remember that.
But
Not
like
maybe.
it doesn't
They
even
didn't
feel.
even know
It
that
feels
HD
like
was
there's like a
possible
matte
back then.
painting behind them, and the figurines are not even standing where they're supposed to be standing to look like they're on the ground. It looks like they're on the sewer walls, and they're just all over the fucking place. It's weird. That's a long play for a bit. In the costumes, which I can give them credit for because the costumes look bulky and big and probably heavy, but I get, I want more from the fight scenes, I think. Which I'm curious if, it's something I'll have to watch out for when we get to the next 2, what they did with live action in these costumes and how well, if they got better and better choreographed as they go through. But yeah, this one is a little lackluster, I think, for me for that. All right, so we'll spin to stuff we liked. We'll start back around with Ian, I guess. You kicked us off.
So
Stuff that you liked.
Is this going to be a short
Uh,
list?
I don't like your tone there, Brian. Like, I don't know what that means. I liked early on the song they're playing at the very beginning. It's not rhyming me a lot like that song that it's electric. Do 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 do. That was really fun for like 10 seconds.
I don't even know if I know what song you're talking about.
Boogie woogie
But
woogie.
yeah,
Well, I know that song, like the song in the movie. That
it's
he's
just
referring
like
to.
for the opening title sequence. It's not really a song. It's just the opening
Okay.
music playing. I really enjoyed the Noid. That was fun to see him on the napkin. I really liked that. I'm happy they brought that back. I really liked the Jose Canseco joke, not because it was like funny and made sense at the time, but because fuck Jose Canseco.
And years later, it would make sense.
I don't think in 1990 that joke was funny. I think it's funny now with what Jose Canseco has become.
That's what I
So,
mean. Like now,
yeah.
it's better.
I just want to make sure the hack writers know I'm not giving them credit. And then I really like how the kids are doing Lord of the Flies shit in the Lord of the Flies cave. That was cool to see them like smoking and gambling and like knowing how poker's played, having a roulette wheel. The only thing I guess about that scene that doesn't work for me is when the gong rings so they can all go see Shredder. The kids just leave the money on the table, which you never do when you're gambling. But I'll pass that as they're still children and they didn't know that Tetsu was going to come and steal it all.
That's
And
probably
that's it.
true.
That would Tetsu's the rake.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the only stuff I like.
I mean, the point about their gambling den and all that. I feel like this movie fueled a lot of like 90s parents' fears about what children did when they weren't within their own parents' vision. They were just completely irrational and illogical. That our parents were like, you can't possibly be going to the roller skating rink. They smoke and drink and gamble there. And it's like, no, Mom, we
that
just
was
get on some
literally-
fucking roller skates and go in a circle to some music.
I mean, that was Danny's relationship with his father, essentially, was all of those fears projected onto the son.
Right, and in that case, they were confirmed. Those fears were like confirmed fears, and I feel like it confirmed a lot of the fears that like 90s parents had at the time and made them even like worse parents.
And also, now that you bring it up, that dad is not concerned about his missing son because he rolls up to that news scene and it's just like, shoot the footage, guys. My son's not missing currently.
All right.
And then he realizes his son shows up.
Who's a worse?
Then he's like, yeah.
Who's a worse father character, him or Nicolas Cage's character from Astro Boy?
This guy is clearly a worse father.
Really?
This
The
guy,
Astro Boy's dad recreates his son using the most modern of technology to bring him back to life. This guy
And then
literally
discards
forgot
it.
he had a son because his son
'Cause it
didn't come
wasn't
home
his
for 3
actual
days.
son.
Ian, I
wasn't
want to
his
remind you,
actual
you went
son.
a 30-minute rant in the Astro Boy episode about how terrible Nicolas Cage was as a father in that movie.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage, not the father in the movie. There's difference. I clearly stated that Nicolas Cage is playing a different character.
Yeah, you gave
Never
the point
forget
to say
that.
Nicolas Cage didn't give a fuck about the father, but the father didn't give a fuck about the kid.
He cared enough to bring him back to life. This guy said, my son's gone missing for 3 days. Oh well.
I mean, his son is kind
He
of a
does
shithead
make it
at
a point
first.
at the very end of the movie to say he's got the whole city looking for him.
Yeah. Like, what more
He
is he to
says
do?
that, but he's not like that concerned when he's like there at this news scene. He's just like, yeah, I'm working like normal. Nothing new going on with my life.
I think
Everything's
that was
A-okay
early, right?
here.
He assumed the kid went to school. No, that's right. He jumped out of the car. Sorry. I'm thinking he dropped it off at school. No, he jumped out of the car.
And
You're
ran
right.
into
Well,
the
speaking
subway.
of, what
So he
parent
acted
watches their
exactly
kid hop out of
like-
the car in New York City and it doesn't like chase them down.
Well, I would have created a traffic jam, and that would have been a whole different thing.
Andy, what were you saying?
So the dad in the Ninja Turtles movie acted exactly like what was her name, Korra's parents in the Astro Boy movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like we've just been going on with our own lives, but holy shit, there you are! Thank God we've been missing you.
And
At
literally
least-
try to say that they both of those groups say in the end, "We've been looking for you."
Right.
At least
Have you?
in
Have you
Cora's
now?
case, it's been like 6 years or something, I feel like, where I would give up. This dude gave up in 3 days. Like, they just finished filming the first 48, and he gave up.
I mean, Danny was a shitty son.
He's a teenager going through life troubles. He give up, fuck him, fuck that kid. Did you hear him? He put on his music phones too high because I tried to talk to him.
He likes music. The
His
son of a
music
bitch.
Ian, I hope you have 8 sons.
I don't even know what that means.
Down the line, in the future.
No, but is that like because the 7th one is cursed? Are we doing like a 7th son of the 7th son thing, or what? Like, is that what that's
It's-
about?
Good song.
Oh, just take
May
it
your
as you will.
first child be a masculine child.
I'm just gonna go listen to that Iron Maiden album tonight.
Great album.
It is. Let's talk about that next week.
All right, Ian, you finished your like list?
Yeah.
The 3 things that were on there, and that was it?
Technically,
Sorry,
there
Josh.
was 4. I counted.
Okay. All right, Josh, your rebuttal.
All right. Everything else I'm going to say is just sort of like a mind dump. I just wrote thoughts down as I normally do. Doesn't necessarily fall like positive, negative a lot of times. So there's just, okay, here we go. In the beginning, yes, Raphael loses a sigh. Splinter says, well, it's gone then. We have to, I guess, accept this. Presumably, though, they will replace it at some point. He's not going to say, teenage son, this is your specialty weapon. You'll just go on with one now forever. How did they get those in the first place of what they have? Like, the turtles, they're probably thieves, right?
Splinter stole them.
They probably
I'm
didn't,
sure.
like,
Yeah.
forge
They forged those.
the
No, they made
swords
them.
and the metal for the nunchucks and shit down in the sewers and stuff. So they're probably, like, minor level thieves themselves. Let's just accept that and move on. Yes, Casey Jones probably does break that kid's face in the park that he hits with the hockey stick, with like the roundhouse punch. Concussion, easily, yes. But again, that dovetails right into the next point. Casey's probably homeless and mentally unstable and deranged. He needs to be institutionalized. We know this. This is just a personal note more. The speech that Chief Stearns gives the first time he's on screen to April, explaining like the differences that the police department's doing now. I have been watching that movie. I've been watching this movie for 30 years. It was only until maybe I watched this randomly again like 10 years ago, so like 20 years into watching this movie, I did not know what words like anything that he said meant. And I
It
wonder,
didn't mean anything, and that was the point.
like, if like watching it now, I'm like, oh, okay, it's bullshit what he's saying, and it's just like, yeah, like hyperbolic speak. I get that, but you can actually follow what he is saying. But I didn't understand those words. I didn't know what any of them meant or what they referred to in sequence. So since I didn't understand that till I was like 20 or 25, I had to ask, was I just a dumb kid? Or did anybody else follow
all
anything
were.
of what he said, even by the time they were like 15?
We all were dumb kids.
Yeah, but
yeah, I don't think anything really stuck with me.
but
then either.
Josh didn't know what those words meant until he was like 26.
Yeah.
This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. It's like if it took till 26,
I mean,
Maybe
individually,
there's a
I could probably
difference.
tell you, yeah, oh, that word is this, and that's what. But like in the sequence that he says them and how he like tries to form that sentence, I could not follow it. Like probably until my mid-20s. So
right?
yes.
But I'm saying, like, is your question, did I understand that when I was 5?
Sort of. I'm trying to mask that with the fact that I didn't understand it till my mid-20s, but
The real question is
It's
he
okay
didn't
that I didn't
understand it until he was
understand
26.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't
what we're
understand
really
it till I was
discussing right
26.
now.
So you not understanding it at 5 means we're the same, and it's not. It's not different.
All right, good.
We're
So I
learning
was-
a lot by why Josh liked this movie right now.
So I was never dumb. That's good to know. Thanks, guys. The part where Ralph runs out of the subway to save April
Whoa,
after
whoa,
she
whoa, whoa,
gets
whoa, whoa,
attacked,
whoa, whoa.
Did you say Ralph?
You just said
Alright,
Ralph.
Or we're Ralph?
and Ralph. So
Ralph is the old man that tends to the gym in Verona.
my notes auto-corrected my short phrase of Raph to Ralph. So yes, Raph runs out, and as he's running towards the Foot Clan, the camera does that like shaky thing to like simulate his vision of what's happening. That's freaking awesome. I've always loved that moment. The Neverland Clubhouse comes up again. I equated when we talked about Astro Boy, the orphan group there, to this exact thing in the Turtles. So yay, Neverland Clubhouse payoff.
So you just predicted the wheel spin that episode because you called it before we spun the wheel.
I was thinking that, and so I don't know if any of us have yet made any correlation or any comment related to anything else that's left on the wheel. I mean, we've talked about Secret of the Ooze a lot, but maybe that's sort of our, voodoo trick we can try and see how often it works.
You know, Zack Snyder did not direct this film, but
I
He
know
could
that.
have.
What did he direct?
well, you know, Rorschach wears a trench coat
I think Rorschach is in The Watchmen, is he not?
and a hat.
Okay, but he is not a turtle.
I-
We talked
well,
about those things because a turtle wore them.
Box check,
But
Mike. I
Rorschach
like it.
also wears them in. He
Dick
kills a
Tracy.
dog, and they kill a dog in the second movie, don't they? So it's
They kill a dog in Turtles 2?
well, Razar or Toka, whichever one he was. I don't remember which one was which.
They don't kill him. In the end, they like reverse the mutation and make
Same
him
difference.
a dog. I know you're trying. I
They
appreciate
took a
it.
sentient being and turned it. They took a dog that turned into a sentient being with real thoughts and the ability to speak, and they turned it back into something that was a sentient being that couldn't do that. They essentially killed it. I mean,
They did not. He looks very cute at the end in the club.
oh, cuteness. That's
After they
okay.
get to the Neverland clubhouse, Sam Rockwell shows up. What the hell? That's amazing. Later,
yeah.
things happen after that, and at some
Yeah.
point, as the fight ensues in April's apartment, nunchuck battle off. Love that every time I see it.
I was waiting for one of them to shoot their gun.
Yeah, it was very indie.
I liked it. Okay, so here's the point about Leo's swords. Yes, Leo's swords would murder a lot. I get that. There would be carnage, appendages, heads, things everywhere. Totally understand that. If they ever decide to make the Logan version, as Brian said earlier, of Ninja Turtles, I will be all there for it. I found Tatsu's nod of approval when the foot soldiers use the piano to bang Donatello's head into it as a weapon. I found that odd if he's training ninjas, and I get the idea of like being resourceful, but it's, to me, that was a bit too much of like, oh yes, you've learned these good training tactics. Well, you hit that turtle's head into those keys a few times. He must be near defeated now, I bet.
No, he liked the
There's a
melody.
lot of like non-ninja moves going on, just like throwing people around, randomly hitting them into things. That's not like ninja fighting.
Yeah,
And let's face it, the ninjas the turtles, they just roll around a lot of the time.
That too, yeah.
Unless the ninja's Jackie Chan. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you can see why Shredder and Tatsu's plan and their empire fell. Like, they did not. Their supposed soldiers are not trained well. The lack of apparently, martial arts and ninja training itself, other than ninja time, does not really ever go off very well.
I looked up that line.
And
It's ninja vanish.
yes, it is.
He also
But I
says,
still think
"Attack."
Ninja Time's better writing.
It'll always be
Ninja
time
time.
here, Ian. In that same thing, as they fall through that floor that was mentioned, and then everyone's like, "Oh, what's happening? Oh, get back up!" And then the lights turn on. They fight some more, and then there's a big break, and then you see Casey Jones enter with that guitar wail, smacking the goalie stick on his hand. Shit, yes, you loved that. Do not lie and say you don't.
I was kind of wondering why he was there.
Granted, yes. Oh, because right before that, he saw, he sees
yeah, he saw
Raph
Raph on the
roof from
Yeah,
afar, and he's
getting
like,
the shit kicked out of him by the
Yeah.
other foot
Oh,
guys.
so he was
Yeah.
looking for children to beat up and saw a turtle instead.
he's a
How
vigilant.
did we get to the roof
vigilante.
that he was on?
Okay. So yeah,
The title fits.
he would have recognized Raph from the park, kept watching him.
Yeah, no, so he was like, hey, that guy with the trench coat and hat, who's clearly not a turtle, he was a turtle the whole time, now that he sees him without the trench coat and hat.
Well, and then he sees him getting attacked, and one way or another, he's like, this is a fight I gotta be in. Somewhere along the way, he decides he's on the turtle's side. He respects Raph for the honorable fight that he gave him in the park. He doesn't like that he's outnumbered. That's not honorable. So he comes to their defense, and it's awesome.
But Casey's not honorable. He's just anti-evil.
In that moment. In that moment, he is.
He remember he was going to murder a child earlier in the film. 3 of them to be exact.
Well, talking about beating up children, Tatsu loves to beat up teenage boys. He takes
Yeah.
all of his frustrations out on adolescents.
This is a like of yours?
I mean, compared to some of the things that you put in your like column most of the time.
Whoa, uncalled for.
A critique I would have is Donatello, to me, is the only one who obviously lacks his typical personality that we think we know about him. You know, Raphael is the consummate angry adolescent teenager. Mikey is the party jokey one. Leonardo is the Boy Scout of the group, but the sort of brainiac, scientist, engineer side of Donatello is not really there. I say they definitely course correct that.
Oh yeah, he's
in the next
like
movie.
the star. He's the star in Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, but it's like noticeably missing from this one if you know that about him.
Well,
My
hold on,
fa-
wait, don't they have the moment with Donatello where he's doing like the repairs with Casey?
I thought about that when it occurred to me, but all he is doing is in the driver's seat. He's just waiting to like turn the engine on to see if it works after Casey's does stuff.
I mean,
And
I
that's
took it
and
as the
that's
presumption that they
Donatello's
were
like
working on
forte,
it
is,
together.
like
though.
the mechanical
Right.
stuff.
And I mean,
Like,
you've kind
I
of already
just took it as-
established, like, you've shown Casey working on a vehicle already, so I guess you're gonna just have him keep doing it, so that it seems like he has sort of a purpose there within the group, now that they're not in a fight. But,
Okay.
yeah, that occurred to me.
Speaking of that scene, I think I just realized it when I watched it again. It's something I completely whiffed as a kid. But the insults that they're throwing back and forth, they were going through the alphabet, which I just realized after watching it this time.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it was like watching it younger. It's just gibberish. I don't realize they're talking about like going through the letters of the alphabet. I just completely spaced on that part, I guess. But so that was kind of fun realizing that for the first time.
to piggyback on what we're talking about right now, they never actually go through and tell you how Michelangelo dealt with everything. They showed like Raph was obviously knocked out. Leonardo was guarding him. Donatello was hanging out with
True.
Casey, and Casey was, just being the fart head or whatever that she called him. But you never actually see how Michelangelo was dealing with things in that. I feel like that would be one of the deleted scenes.
Also,
fair.
In that whole scene, we see that their care for Raphael was just to stuff him in a fucking bathtub.
Well, he's a turtle.
Like, they just...
Yeah,
there wasn't water in it.
Put him in some water,
He
keep him
was just in a dry
comfortable. I mean,
bathtub.
fits his body shape. I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
What would be the alternative?
A bed, a couch, and like anything other than a hard chunk of porcelain.
This was a callback to Grapes of Wrath.
I mean,
it may have been. I never watched it, so I don't know if it could be.
they did put him on his back, and his back is a hard shell. So,
No, it's a half of a hard shell.
oh yeah, it is a half shell. Sorry.
He didn't complain after he woke up, so I'm assuming he was not angry about that choice.
Well, he also didn't seem to know he was unconscious for God knows how long.
I mean, he didn't really have a choice. Like he was stuck with it. What's he gonna do? Say, did you guys stuff me in a bathtub for a week?
I mean, he could have, but he was like, you know what? I'm gonna find my priorities. I need something to eat. That's what I'm focusing on.
Right, but I'm just saying, for somebody they supposedly really care about, he looked like he was just tossed in there too. Like he was on his side. Half of him was hanging out of the damn tub. Like it just.
Now that I'm thinking about it, like that, they've probably never seen a bathtub before.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought it was a
So
bed.
no, they're like, that's a rare item. That's what we should use. I've never
But there's
seen one of
two
those
human
before. That's
beings
got to be
there.
a mystical thing. I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird that the two humans in the group never bathed during this time, but whatever.
Well, how could
Don't
they?
we
The
see like
bathtub was big
April
enough.
instead of bathing?
That's what I mean, yeah,
wipe
they could
herself
have.
off with a rag. Like,
Oh, so there's an instance in which one of them is wet. She sprinkles water on him and whatnot. We talked
Yes.
about wet before.
Callback.
they weren't in
talked
New
about
York at the
wet.
time,
When-
so
when they get back to the city and get back to their lair and find Danny hiding in the cabinet, and they open it up and he yells, "Don't shoot!" And Raph says, "I don't think it's loaded, kid." It's my favorite joke of the movie. I love that line. I thought Splinter's flashback as he's telling Danny his story was like fairly dark, like in like the tone of it, the material, the nature of it. I'd have to go back and put the scene back on and pause. I didn't do it this time for almost my entire life, and definitely when I was a kid growing up. When they get to the part where they show like, oh, my master came home and found his love dead on the floor, there are little bits of things, a ton of them, like right around her body. And again, I think because of like how it looks, it's very grainy. It's very like, it's not good quality picture. And I think that's on purpose. But I always thought that she was lying on the ground with like her arm cut into pieces.
Going
Same
in,
here,
but
actually. And
yeah,
when I saw it
stuff
this
like that, I
time,
think
I was
would've
like,
played a lot
holy
better.
shit, I'm pretty sure that's like part of a necklace or something.
Is that it? Because like the way she's
It looked
laying,
like maybe
I can't
pearls or something.
tell where her
Dude,
other arm is.
Batman
I
thing.
always thought she was just like mutilated when I was a kid. I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, they got dark. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
But even like the whole revenge story and I mean the violence of it, but like the emotional connection that Splinter was like, I loved my master and all this, and then he was taken from me. Like it's dark material. I skip ahead to the Tatsu Casey fight when the golf clubs show up and you already know Casey Jones and you're like, there's the damn golf clubs. Shit, yes, here we are.
Here comes the fucking zinger, guys. What's he gonna hit us with?
That's what I
Golf
always
isn't boring. That's the joke. That's the zinger. Golf was boring. Now it's not, because you hit people with the clubs.
I was alright with it.
I mean, to be fair, if they had like hockey fights in golf, I might watch golf. Like if somebody made a putt and then somebody just charged them and started beating the shit out of them, that I might watch golf.
And then immediately after that moment concludes, who do we get again? More Sam Rockwell. And what does he bring into the mix? One of the themes from something else we do on the show, family.
I made a note of that, which basically connects the two, because I was thinking, I think they say family more in this movie than they do in Fast Five.
I love that
That's
scene.
possible.
I do like when Shredder finally drops off of wherever the hell he was during that end fight and just like falls into like that particular section of roof. Because to me that was very deliberately like, all right, if this is a game, this is a video game, this is a cartoon, etc. Like, all right, here we go, boss level. That's beginning.
Yeah.
It's right now. There it is.
Yeah.
I actually tend to think that the way, I'm sure there's a lot to be desired still, but between the cutting, the music, the voice effects of all the actors in the scenes, I actually really dig the Turtles Shredder fight a lot. There's an intensity to it that I think helps you forget how simple it probably really seems in terms of the choreography, and that there's a lot of like stupid mistakes that the Turtles make and whatnot. But the score, especially during that scene, I freaking love.
So that's one of my notes, is the rooftop climax for me is still fantastic. Like the lead up to that, when they finally reveal each other that they're going to face off, and then it like cuts down to the street, and that, like Josh was saying, the music kicks up, something a little bit more upbeat and fighty, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it right now, but that part still gives me goosebumps when I start to get to that third act fight.
That moment, right? You said it right, when they cut down back down to the street for a second, and Casey is looking up and thinks he's talking to Splinter, who's already left, but he doesn't know it yet. And as he's saying those lines, like, "Think your boys are gonna need a little," he looks down, he realizes he's gone. Where'd he go?
And you can hear them fighting on the
Yes,
roof.
and as
Ooh,
Casey's delivering those
leftovers.
lines and turning his head, like, you hear that like subtle music build up, and so when it cuts back to the roof, it's like, bam, here we go.
Yeah.
Really good. Garbage truck shows up. Hell yes. Knock those people off that ladder. Punch more of them in the face after you get out. This was like, I think after we talked about the Batman a couple of weeks ago, but I still sort of have that idea in my head. Like, yes, punch evil in its dumb face. And then, yep, murder by garbage truck compactor. Point for Casey. And then before we get out of there, we get Sam Rockwell. Yet again, we get the trifecta. He goes legit. He says, this is what, hey, everything that you need, I'm going to tell you where to go. I will say, just realizing it now, this could go on the negative list. The chief of police for the entire city of New York walks into a chaotic murder scene and talks to one like 19-year-old ruffian who says, go somewhere that's probably 20 miles away and you'll find what you think you want to know. And the guy just turns and goes. Doesn't stay there. He's not coordinating resources any longer. He's just on his way.
Doesn't flat out arrest the person
None
that
of
he's
them.
talking to.
None of them, yeah.
That's why the Foot Clan wear masks.
And then specifically, Andy, I know your gripe about the lyric in the song, which I never picked up on because I'm too busy rocking out to it and grooving with it. I love that first song, TURTLE Power.
Oh, I love
It
it. Don't get me
plays
wrong. It just
in the opening.
Partners
That-
in crime.
Yes.
that little snippet of Raphael being the leader just always was like, no, he's not. Huh. Like.
And the artist is Partners in Crime, spelled KRYME. That is the artist.
Not to be confused with actual crime. Just want to set the record straight.
Because it was
Yeah,
1990.
that reminds
and they
me
were
of
edgy.
like there was a wrestling like tag team called Crime Time. It was in the WWE for a while, and it just like I hear that name and it just reminds me of that tag team. Like it just I don't know why.
Did they spell it stupidly the same like that, or it just
I can't
that's like a
even
recall of it?
remember.
They used Y's instead of I's.
Yeah, they used a C, but
That seems even worse. Like if you're gonna do that, just go the full way.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts.
Andy, I guess it's your turn.
I really like the soundtrack to this movie, the score, soundtrack, all of it. I just the whole thing is very nostalgic for me, and I think it's really quite awesome.
It's so 90s, but it's so good.
Yeah, it's really good. I like, and I don't think I've ever noticed it until I saw it this time. I like how each of the turtles' faces actually looks slightly different. I never noticed that when
Yeah.
I was a kid. I was just like, oh, they're all just the same thing, just different color masks. I really like, I know Ian's going to be pissed, but I really like the jokes in this movie because they're very, very punny, and I think that's awesome. And I enjoyed the shit out of that part of it. I laughed quite a bit during this movie.
Oh, I can't wait till we get to Secret of the Ooze then
They're
and see what's in there
they're
for
so
you.
cheesy and punny that it's just you can't not like it.
I can't wait till we get to Batman and Robin then, if that's your cup of tea.
No,
Everybody,
okay, that's
freeze.
those are one-liners. They're not necessarily jokes.
Yeah, what this whole thing is going to be a test to see where Andy draws the line for terrible puns.
Yeah, high freeze. I'm Batman does not count.
Yeah, but Mr. Freeze saying chill out? Come on.
Okay, yeah, I might have to laugh at that.
Chill out.
It is. I liked the training that the turtles were doing at the farm. I like that scene a lot, as well as their kumbaya moment where they all sort of connect with Splinter over the fire. I thought that sort of brought everything in really nicely. And
Yeah.
I remember really liking that as a kid, and it stood up very well. Watching it now.
I will agree to that and tag on to that for just a second to go like really real for another moment. I, for some reason, like do and simultaneously don't have strong associations with this, with my brother, but for some reason, like especially this time around, that scene in particular around the fire and whatnot, really hit hard in a way.
It kind of gets
hit,
you
like,
in the
big time.
feels that you don't expect it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it affected me as much as a kid. Like, it's just something you gloss over. Like, okay, yeah, this is moving the plot forward. But as an adult, yeah, it does hit a little bit harder. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. What else did I like? Yeah, I mean, overall, just the nostalgia aspect of it. I think that was my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. I can remember.
Okay. Mike, I guess your turn. What else you got?
So first and foremost, I'd like to make note of the character modeling. The costumes, Splinter, the baby turtles. I don't know how they hit the high point in the series in the first film for this, but they did. You know, you go to the second and third films, for whatever reason, in the third film, their teeth get fucking huge. It makes no sense. It's weird. And I believe also in the third, maybe just in the second film too, they don't actually fully animate Splinter. So, like, you only see the top half of Splinter. Like, you never see him walking around, you never see his legs or anything. You always just see him, like, from a window or something, like, half up. You never actually see the whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know how they do that, where you hit this home run of a movie with this, massive, whatever percentage profit they made off the movie, and then somehow the work that Henson did for the movie just got worse and worse. I don't understand how that happened, but it did.
They lost the bottom
soundtrack-
half of the puppet.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
They just misplaced it.
That's a very good practical reason why they would do it that way.
Rats got to it.
What Andy said about the soundtrack, I completely agree. And I think as a movie that was generated towards both adults and kids, this movie was made for both. It wasn't the second and third movies. Like, this was made to appeal to both. It had that more darker tone and all that, but it put in this storyline of a bit of a moral story for kids around Danny that a lot of the movies at that time would not have focused on, would not have put into the movie. They would have just thrown something together and Danny's story wouldn't have been part of it. And Danny's story really is the moral of the story. It's about redemption. It's about somebody who went the wrong path, realized it, and turned around. And the Turtles story this whole time is kind of ancillary to that, in my own opinion. Like, you're getting a lot of that Turtle story and all that, but the real moral of the story lies with Danny. And that's kind of an interesting way to present it. Where they wouldn't have before. Like I said, like other movies at the time that I think of that were similar, like Ghostbusters had nothing like that.
Well,
I like Ghostbusters more as a movie, but it had nothing like that in it.
since you're framing it around that, that's also something that the next two movies for Ninja Turtles lacked.
No, they had nothing like that. The lesson was, haha, laugh at the turtles. And that was it. Look, Kevin Nash is Super Shredder. Yay. I don't know.
Holy shit, that was Kevin Nash?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Super Shredder was Kevin Nash, yes.
Oh,
In his early days.
Other things that I feel like were really done well. The humor in some ways still works on some levels. No, hey, calm down, Ian. I'm not talking about all of it. I'm talking about some of it. The silly humor to me holds up. Like the idea that like
I bet Splinter loves that one. That was a joke.
Had me
I
rolling
know.
on
I'm
the
not
That one
talking about
landed
that.
so hard.
I'm talking about the silly humor along the lines of like
Not game show fans?
I'm talking about the physical humor more so, like the slapstick aspect of some of the humor that they did. I thought was fun. Yes, a lot of like their puns and irony and all that was very cheesy, but I mean, I get a huge laugh out of like the model, like the whatever you want to call it, the suit, the character's face when Michelangelo comes up behind, I guess it's Donatello with the symbols, and just like the sheer like panic and whatever on its face when it screams when he slaps them behind him makes me laugh every time. Like the whole thing with like, oh, I'm sure Raph will turn up soon enough, and then he just falls through the roof. I feel like I like that still. I like that kind of thing, and it worked. Some of the other stuff didn't, yes, but that did. Even though they killed it in the second and third films, and now it's more cringe, but the whole like Splinter making a funny thing, I still love that. I remember loving that when I was a kid, and I still love it just because of the nostalgia. Yes, they did the same joke in the second and third movies, and it did not fucking go over in either of those two, but in the first one, it still worked. Michelangelo's conversation with the pizza delivery, or the pizza with Domino's, about the anchovies and all that, I fucking still laughed at that.
I just didn't get, like, had someone just been throwing anchovies on pizzas at random?
But that's the point. You don't have to know. Like, it's... So help me if there's anchovies, which means at some point they had gotten anchovies without asking for them, if he's saying that.
Or
you know?
he's just
like,
so comically irrational that these are things that he always makes a point to, demand.
Exactly.
I get it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I enjoyed that. Beyond that, like we've talked about most of it. The whole, again, so much of it ended up being overdone in the sequels. But in this one, they only do like the head turtle pop thing the one time, like where they pop their head into the shell and like, oh, I love being a turtle. It was good. when it was the first time you heard the joke. It's just, I can't let the sequels be the reason that joke doesn't hit now for me. Because, we're looking at this as its own film. Yeah, I mean, just the nostalgia that hits for me. I watched this movie, don't get me wrong, probably more than any of you did. I watched this, there was probably a year and a half that I watched this daily. Like, I was just obsessed with this as a kid. Like, it was on every fucking day. So for me, it holds a special place, one way or another, for better or worse.
Yeah.
I would say this is the first and only VHS that I ever wore out.
Oh, yeah.
And it was one of the few, like, I think in our house, like, we did not have, like, the fact that we even at some point had a VCR was a miracle. And so, like, of the 3 VHSs that we either owned or were gifted to us or whatever, this was one of them. So it might have been the case, like, that's why it's not a necessity, but didn't matter. This thing never got old to me.
I remember ours was like a bootleg copy, like recorded off of television.
Nice.
So it had commercials in it and everything. Like,
Mike, do you have anything else? Was that it?
I would like to add one more negative if I can, that I forgot.
Okay.
Seriously, how the fuck does Splinter grab Shredder at the end of this? Like,
He pulls the nunchucks out, gets them around his staff, twists them, and as he goes over, the tension twists and holds it.
No, I
Physics.
get that, but I'm saying, like, we see Splinter do like a flick of his wrist. If Splinter really is that good, that after being held captive and starved and like basically tortured for
Crucified,
however the hell long it was, yeah, that he's that good that after all that time, this Shredder, who is better than all of his turtles combined, he's just like, flick of the wrist, gotcha, bitch.
He's calm. He's zen.
What?
He's deliberate. He knows.
I get it.
I'd liken it to Yoda. Really?
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but by the time Yoda is like teaching Luke, I don't feel like Yoda was able to do that stuff anymore. I feel like Yoda was.
We don't know. He didn't have a reason.
He was dying.
he also had
Splinter's
magic
on his
space
deathbed?
powers.
That's true. He did have magic space powers, which aren't prevalent here, or which aren't around in this. It's not. I don't know.
Splinter
It
is
just
not a
seemed
magical
like-
space rat.
It seemed out of place for him to just be like that good, and in just sending them out this whole time. When how much good could Splinter have been doing before he was injured? If he's that good. I don't know. It just,
Well, I don't think he gives a shit about the people in New York. He gives a shit about his sons. Shredder at
why
that
he
point is
sending them
threatening
out
his sons.
to go out and
I don't think
help
he's
New
sending them
York.
out. They're just going out and being
Yeah.
hoodlums.
They're going to go out regardless. He's just telling them, if you're going to go out, be careful. Be back by 10.
Like, they're
Okay.
the ones out there picking fights. He doesn't care if they're saving the city or whatever.
Okay, no, I'll accept that. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because it was something that bugged me. But
I don't think I have too much. I have a couple, like, just random notes that I wrote down on top of a couple stuff that I liked that I think, I don't know if we talked. Yeah, we talked about turtles still look good. I think the costume design was good. The mouth don't always sync up, but that's where all the robotics and electronics are, so that's forgivable for me. Casey Jones, even though he's like mentally stunted, is still my favorite character in this movie by far. We talked about how much I love the rooftop climax. Just other general thoughts that I don't know if we touched on. As seeing this movie as a kid, like, Raph's opening line is basically swearing. I remember that being a big fucking deal when I was a kid. Like, oh, Raph said damn. Am I allowed to say damn? The turtles just said
Is
damn.
it okay that I heard someone say damn? Or am I gonna have to turn this
Right.
off? Am I in trouble for having heard it?
Yeah, typically that's the time when the movie shuts off and you're like, you're going to bed. This is not for you.
they say it several times. They say damn.
Yeah.
They don't even say hell. They just say damn. I can't tell you how many times.
It's probably the only word that the MPAA let them take. and used to still be PG or whatever. I'm assuming this is still PG,
It
right? It
is.
wasn't PG-13, I don't think.
Yeah.
Splinter is still creepy as hell. Like that, I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but he still creeps me out as a costume and puppet or whatever the hell they use there.
He always looks wet.
Yes, that too. Yeah. I don't know why this hit me more obviously this time, but Raph is like the most New Yorker I've ever fucking heard in my entire life. Like, none of the other ones talk like he does, and they're all from the same spot, but Raph, for whatever reason, is just straight up New York, like hardcore. Just his mannerisms, the way he talks, his
He goes out
accent,
on the
everything.
town.
Yeah,
he interacts with the people. You know?
Which is
Yeah,
weird.
he's
Stay
the
in
only
the
one that really
sewer,
goes
he's
outside
going
and
to the
goes to
movie.
see movies.
No, he watched
he's,
this-
He's the New Yorker.
He saw that Super Mario Brothers movie a couple times.
That's weird too, because Michelangelo almost gives off a feeling of like the West Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's true. This is just maybe more of a question for all of us. This is by far the best April O'Neil we've got out of these movies, right? It's all downhill
Well, it's
from
the
here.
same one in the
I don't
second
remember
movie,
the
right?
other
It's
the other
same
one
April.
from the next two.
I remember.
I thought
the
it was
next one.
Judith Hogue still in the second one.
No, this is her one and only
Yeah.
shot for April O'Neil. I don't think she's in the other
She's not.
two.
I remember who's in the third one, but she was awful. Like I remember, like I can see it.
Is it the
It was
same
horrible.
1 and 2 and 3?
I think it is. I thought it was.
It could
but
be.
again, I have no memory of what April O'Neil looks or sounds like in the next two movies.
Yeah, but then you get Megan
And
Fox.
at this point, I don't even want to look it up. I just want to watch those movies and see.
Which-
But I have no recollection of what she is or who she is.
I mean, I definitely remember.
Yeah, it's definitely the best.
At least Secret of the Ooze. I have never still. I mean, we mentioned I've never seen the newer one, so I don't know how Megan Fox's April is. But at least out of
Yeah.
like the original ones, I mean, also, I mean, the character that they wrote for April though is, by far so much better than what they gave that later April to do.
Yeah, she has much more to do in this one. And maybe that's why, she didn't come back for the next one, because she realized they were sort of writing her off and didn't really give her anything to do.
There was
I
a
still don't
slice
really
of
know what the
pizza
story is
In
there.
the second one, kind of.
If it was creative differences or a contract thing that she didn't come back or scheduling, who
Right,
knows?
Could be a lot of things.
But that's all I got. So at this point, should we go around for ratings? Out of
That's where
10?
we are.
Wind it down?
All right.
Ian, you got the spreadsheet ready?
No.
You're just gonna wait till the episode
Give
gets released and then go back and download
It's gonna
it.
give him an
and
excuse.
re-listen
Yeah,
to
go
the whole
back,
thing
go back
just to get
later,
that
listen
piece.
to it. Well, I guess at this point, Ian, you don't even have to wait for the episode to be edited and uploaded. You can come back to the Twitch stream and find it. If you're looking for ratings for the spreadsheet. Well, anyway, Ian, we've been going to you first, so you're up first.
He made a spreadsheet. Now he's looking at you like, I'm not going to keep up with this.
Are you crazy? That is absurd.
You opened the door. You got to
think I
finish this,
saved
ride
that
this one
file.
out
You
now.
put formulas into cells, man. There's averages there. I can tell.
You can't prove I didn't do those in my head.
I mean, honestly, Ian, if you don't want to do it, I'm sure Josh loves spreadsheets. He will gladly, I'm sure, take this off your
I'm
hands.
so boring.
So the only thing more boring than Josh was this movie. I lost interest almost instantly. I spent half of the movie being like, I could be doing something else. Maybe I'll text Brian and said, I'm just skipping this one. These jokes didn't land. The action was boring. There were 0 explosions. I was
There
upset.
were
like,
0 explosions.
Huh?
Holy shit.
yeah, there was 0
I
explosions.
just realized there are no
None
explosions in this
explosions
movie.
occur.
None explosions.
Like at least the type of bad Bloodshot was, it held my interest to see what stupid thing was going to happen next. With this, I was like, I don't even care. I forgot who the Turtles' personalities were. The only one I could remember was like Raphael, I think, because he was important. Maybe I kind of prefer calling him Ralph now. That's something I've gotten out of this.
You're welcome.
I did not like this movie. It's a 3.5.
Oof. Well, Josh, bring us back around. I know you're going to rebuke that one.
This might get a little higher if I knew I didn't have many other things throughout this journey of Rewind Theater that I would need to put higher to give myself room. So this solidly, easily gets an 8.
Okay.
If for nothing else, I think and I might have argued this or just randomly said it on previous episodes for some reason, or just in person, but I think given you're handed this source material and you know what that looks like, but you're also trying to work on this film and you have this hit TV kids show cartoon that is blowing up, and you still choose to produce this. Legitimately, like, for good or for bad, I think this is one of the bravest movie making decisions and ballsiest decisions, at least from a financial standpoint, and given all the factors going into it at the time, to make. And I've always loved the tone of it. Like I said, I think there are certain some things that Secret of the Ooze does a little better, but ultimately, like, yeah, like, I would love to see this flavor of the Ninja Turtles more and more. And I don't know what the like Michael Bay produced ones are more like or not, if they fall somewhere in between, if they're just like their own thing entirely. But if they ever started producing things that leaned more this way, especially in a live action arena, I would enjoy it immensely.
I'll give you that. Andy, out of 10.
I'm also going to give it an 8.
Do care to elaborate at all?
I didn't expect to laugh as much as I did watching it now, as old as I am. And just, I don't know, just, I guess it still held weight for me, nostalgia-wise.
Okay, that's fair. Mike, out of 10?
8.75.
Oh, he's taking the in-between route.
Well, no, I always give it like a point system. Like,
Yeah, I just figured, I don't remember. I know Ian's been given like 0.3s and 0.7s. I thought you were either 0.5 or 0.
Is that
No,
a repeating? Is it repeat after that, or?
No, 8.75. It's not 8.67.
I'm just asking. I gotta know.
8 3/4.
He's not maintaining a spreadsheet. He has to know how many decimal places to include.
Now I have to change the formula to show 3 digits.
Fine, 8.7 if it saves your formula.
It's not a formula. It's just formatting. Hit the arrow.
We'll call it 1.3 explosions away from a 10 out of 10.
No. This movie needed like a lot more explosions. Oh God. You are a hack reviewer.
Doesn't say that about any of the other people that just gave it an 8, but Mike specifically is a hack reviewer.
No one else said that this movie had 1.3 more explosions. It'd be a perfect 10.
Brian, if you don't put that title in your back pocket for Mike somewhere and introduce him in a future episode, at some point I'll be disappointed.
Hack reviewer. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm more in line with these guys. I'm giving it an 8.5, and as much as like some of the stuff seems outdated or inconsistent for me, the nostalgia for me is definitely just holding it up there. It's a movie I could rewatch all the time, even for, again, all its downfalls. I could rewatch this anytime. I think it holds up a lot. Oh, that's one question I probably should have put in the outline, is more or less, does this hold up? That's sort of the whole reason we were revisiting some of this stuff. But I guess sort of just based on the conversations and what we've sort of rated it, I think it's safe to assume that a lot of us feel like this does hold up.
If you had watched it a million times.
I mean,
tens.
I mean, I watched it 3 times before we did this review, like in the past week and a half. So,
jeez,
wow.
How?
Yeah, you are set.
Because it's fucking awesome. That's how.
No, it is not.
Disagree.
So I think it's safe to say 4 out of the 5 of us think this holds up. I'm going to go on a limb there and say that. I'll try to make sure I put that question in there whenever we get to other...
I cannot wait until we get to Watchmen so that Ian and I can agree on something for once.
I think it holds up. I think other than a couple of the like very specifically dated references that it makes it at a couple points, quality wise, especially like for the budget that you found and whatnot. There's a lot more ways that this movie could have gone off the rails and just looked worse. The production could have been more terrible. The editing could have been more terrible. The action sequences, the way it's shot, like all of that, like the recipe for it. Really, this should totally be a terrible movie to everybody.
I agree. It should be.
All right, well, I guess at this point we are going to spin the wheel.
Wheel of Fame.
For anybody that's still in chat, I did put up a poll for the movies that are on the wheel. So if you want to just cast your vote, what you think will be picked. We'll see if you're correct. I guess it's you. I don't know. I guess I was framing it that way, but I guess if you want to pick what you think you'd like to see, granted your choice has no effect on what the wheel will choose, but you know we could see if what you want to see gets chosen. So I just put up the options that are in the poll. So I don't know if I can show the poll again. Chris, I guess if you're in there, you haven't voted. I think somewhere up there it tells you what the poll was. Yeah. So if you exclamation point TMNT for Turtles, that'll give us Secret of the Use. Exclamation point Swamp Thing. Exclamation point Constantine. Or I guess you have to do vote. Exclamation point vote, and then one of the options. Constantine, Valerian, Cowboys, Watchmen. Those are what's on the board. So you guys are going to have to watch the Twitch stream because that's how I'm going to have to share the wheel. Everybody should hopefully be able to see the wheel. And if it's not there yet, hopefully it'll show up in the next couple seconds.
My head's real big.
There's the wheel.
All right, maybe it's a little bit of a delay. Hopefully.
So am I going to hear it in here? Or is it...
Hopefully you hear it through Twitch, probably.
I'm not listening
because I'm not
to
sharing
Twitch.
through Skype.
I'm not listening.
All right, well then you won't hear the spin.
Okay.
All right, you guys see it? Yes?
Mhm.
Everybody does?
I can now, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hit the spin, and I'm going to hold my tongue because it's probably going to be a 10-minute or 10-second delay between me and you guys. So for everyone that voted, we have 2 votes for Constantine, 2 votes for Cowboys and Aliens, 1 vote for Watchmen. So we will see what hits.
Because we know that it is up to fate.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know how
Been
I
waiting
feel
for
about
this one.
this. I've never watched this before, so I don't know if I'm happy or not.
Yeah, ditto.
Yeah, me
Same
neither.
here.
Has anybody started or like I don't know if they previously watched it or if you started watching Swamp Thing now that it's airing on CW?
No.
I have not. No.
I've read the comic. But
It's like obviously like it's a weekly release because it's filling the slot that some of the regular Arrowverse shows would have started this fall but weren't ready to because of production delays. So it's only like 3 episodes released so far, but I'm really digging it. I hope that the reaction that it gets, I heard it's gotten like really good ratings, so if they can pick it up and try to figure out a way to continue it on
Well, that's
CW.
the one that got canceled, right? From when they was on DC Universe, they canceled it before the first season was over.
Yeah, it was
That was the one
supposed to be
James Wan had a hand in, I think.
James Wan was producing / kind of showrunner along with Len Wiseman.
Oh, okay.
Who
Underworld,
directed
right?
at least the first episode. What's that?
Didn't he do Underworld? Wasn't he
Yeah.
director for that? Yeah.
Yep.
So, what is the what's the website that'll tell us what options we have to watch this? It might be.
Well, Andy,
Just
that,
Watch.
yes. www.
Yeah, justwatch.com.
Justwatch.com.
And that should give you. So I don't even know what year did that movie come out. Which one are we looking for? There are
1982.
multiple.
Is it that early? Yeah, because this was it's John Carpenter, wasn't
Wes Craven.
it? Craven. Yeah, it was one of them.
can Brian handle this? If it's Wes Craven?
It's PG.
Then yes, I can handle
Which is
this.
weird because on the IMDb page, on the uncut version, it says there's additional nudity. Which means the PG version has some nudity.
Nice.
All right, well, that's what we got to look forward to for the next one is Swamp Thing, which I really don't know anything about this movie, so
No,
this will
yeah,
be
neither.
interesting.
I'm not even sure if this
This
is
is our
DC
second
Swamp
franchise,
Thing.
so there are multiple Swamp Thing movies.
You know what?
only
Is this
two.
the origin story of Swamp Thing from Con Air?
That was
Wow.
awful.
Like, I'm.
You could write
I
for
know
the
Con Air pretty
Turtles.
well. What is that from?
Wait, is this the 82 one?
Yep.
82?
Swamp Thing from 1982. That's what we're going with.
Mhm.
All
Okay.
right. Well,
All
that'll be
right. Well,
fun.
anybody keeping score?
Is this our oldest
That's what you
movie?
got next.
This
What's
is
that?
the oldest movie too. Then
Yeah, that we've done so far.
it's like what
Yeah, because I think this Turtles was, and now it's been outdated by this one.
the third movie, not from the 2010s.
Yeah. Well, that just means the wheel's going to stay the same for the next time we do this, too. Nothing changes.
Oh yeah, that's another franchise. So
Yeah, Swamp Thing stays on the board.
But that's good because after that point, both franchises will still be on. There's like a 1 in 3 chance, as always, that we'll get a franchise again. So that could either move Turtles along, or if it hits, I mean, it would be amazing if it hits Swamp Thing again.
Yeah.
We hit number 2, and then get a replacement after that, something new and exciting to add to the neighborhood.
Yeah. See how it goes.
yeah, I'm
All right. Well, I guess that's it. You guys got anything else? I think we've been going
Um,
for like 2.5, so this is the longest rewind theater we've done.
Only thing I'd have is a final question. Which
Which
turtle
is?
do you relate to most?
Oh, that's a tough question.
I've always been a.
I can tell you which one I don't, and it's Michelangelo by far. I feel like at one point or another, I've always related to one of the other ones.
Fair. Yeah. Probably.
It's like as a kid, I wanted to be Donatello. In my early 20s, early 30s, or late 20s, early 30s, probably Leo. Right now, Raphael.
I said Raphael's like adolescent shittiness. I was probably like a perfect match for me when I was 15. But yeah, I'm probably a mixture of like Donatello and Leo.
Ian?
Leonardo, because all the other turtles hate him.
That's the bar.
I feel like that's Raph though. Actually, like it's not.
Well, I guess I'm
Oh, I
thinking
love
the
how he-
cartoon more, where they are like, dude, shut the fuck up.
But okay, all right.
Andy, which turtle are you?
I was always a Donatello guy.
I was always kind of pushed toward Michelangelo because I shared like the name and all that, and it.
Yeah, I'm upset
was never-
Brian didn't introduce you as Mikey.
Yeah,
Oh, missed
Slightly.
opportunity.
but I never really related to him. I was never like. That was never my attitude. More Leonardo, Donatello. One of those two.
Well, you know what that means, Ian. The next Turtles episode we do, he's got to be the hack reviewer, Mikey.
Mikey the Hack.
I mean, he's also bad at reviewing Life cereal, so.
He likes it.
I was wondering if anyone was going to get it.
I mean,
That was a deep
that's the
cut, I
first
feel
time
like.
I've ever heard that one in my life.
In connection with being
I
a
think that's a
hack
good place-
reviewer, though, that was different.
I think that's probably the best note to end on, right? I think that's where we got to go.
It's not going to go up from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you've enjoyed the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. This is where all wherever you listen to us audio wise. Here, you can just give us a follow on Twitch. Whenever you listen to the audio portion, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Stitcher. Feel free to follow us. Keep up with the show. You can find us on Facebook. Search Bry Guy and Super Friends. Go to facebook.com/BryGuySuperFriends. You can send us questions, comments, topic suggestions, any of that stuff there. Try to email us, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. That email address does work. I verified that today, so I did check it. And you can tweet us at BGSuperFriends on Twitter. Again, follow me on Twitch if you want to keep up for the next live broadcast. Whenever we decide to do another live one, we'll see what else we can figure out. We'll try to do it maybe once a month-ish or something. So we'll try to figure out what we want to do next for this. So keep an eye out to Twitter and Facebook. That's where we post whenever we're going to go live. You can find us there. And on behalf of Andy, Ian, Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening and watching us this time. And we'll talk to you next time.
Zip Nation, please help me with my Sony payments.